Chapter 1566. Undine shrugged. Armendadir is the elemental sun in Elvish. The water of enlightenment is Armendadir's blood. Undine paused for a moment before continuing. However, Armand Didier is the symbol of depravity. He is sinister, cunning, evil, and bloodthirsty. The Dark Elves were tempted by Armand Didier and drank his blood, thus becoming depraved. Chen Zhao frowned. Undine's words seemed to contradict herself. You said that the water of enlightenment can make elves evolve, and then you said that Armendadir's blood is the water of enlightenment. Then you said that the Dark Elves drank Armendadir's blood and became depraved. So, did the Dark Elves evolve or depraved? Chen Zhao raised his suspicions. Or maybe your ancestors were jealous of the Dark Elves. The Dark Elves evolved but the other elves didn't, so they purposely divided and slandered the Dark Elves. Chen Zhao felt that this was possible. Wasn't this a classic case of envy, jealousy, and hatred? Of course it's not that simple, Undine said unhurriedly. At that time, there were no Dark Elves. At that time, the elves were still a whole. Avendadir disguised himself as a sage and came to the elf clan. He used our kindness and trust to trick the entire elf clan into drinking his blood. It wasn't just the Dark Elves who drank it, but the entire elf clan. Undine slowly said, Avendadir descended 3,000 years ago. At that time, there were no Dark Elves. And then, later, some of them were tempted by Armendadir's blood and became his slaves. From then on, the elves split into the White Elves and the Dark Elves. Under Armendadir's leadership, the Dark Elves started a war against the White Elves. Who won in the end? Chen Zhao asked. Of course, we won. Light triumphed over darkness, justice triumphed over evil, and Amanda Didier was sealed by us. Undine's tone was still cold, but there was a tinge of pride in her tone. Chen Zhao didn't agree with the so-called depravity. People's thoughts might change, but their personalities wouldn't. For example, the source of the depravity. He also had the ability to control others. But that was control, not depravity. Control and depravity were different. If there was really someone in the world who could make someone depraved, then that person could definitely rule the world. Take God for example. In any mythological system, God was the most powerful existence. But could God change a person's thinking? If God could change everyone's mind, that way, he could directly turn all the humans in the world into his believers. Then God would not need to establish a religion. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't argue with Undine. After all, this story had been passed down for 3,000 years. It was clearly impossible for Chen Zhao to overturn 3,000 years of history with his own knowledge. So this is where Armand Didier was sealed. Yes, the ancestor of the White Elves sealed Armand Didier here. The Dark Elves want to release Armendadir. The Dark Elves aren't stupid. If they release Amanda, they will only become his slaves again. The Dark Elves only want Amanda's blood, which is the water of enlightenment. I told you, I just want the water of enlightenment. I have no intention of releasing Amanda Didier, Lila Gavik said angrily. Do you think I'll believe you? Moscow Pool stared coldly at Lila Gavik. His eyes were filled with distrust and hatred. He knew Lila Gavik too well, a cunning old fox. Just like his master, Amanda Didier, they were both sinister and dangerous. Releasing Amanda Didier won't do me any good. I won't believe you. Lila Gavik sneered at Moscow Pool. You also want the water of enlightenment, right? You hypocrite. You keep saying that you're going to stop me, but ever since you met me, you've never really stopped me. Clearly, you want the water of enlightenment too. It's better than falling into your hands, Moscow Pool said calmly. Aren't you afraid of falling? Lila Gavi smiled strangely. I wonder if it would be interesting if a white elf like you, who thinks highly of yourself and is proud of your bloodline, degenerates into a bastard like me. Do you think this is the first time we white elves have come here? Moscow Pool sneered. Every generation, white elves will come here to extract the water of enlightenment. As the descendants of white elves, we won't be tainted by Amanda Deer's fallen will. Despicable. No wonder you white elves could awaken so many high-level bloodlines after so many generations. You've been hiding it all along. Lila Gavik was both angry and jealous. After all, the Dark Elves had spent hundreds of years just to find the entrance to the cave. Dark Elves didn't have a high-grade bloodline in every generation. For example, when Lila Gavik had taken over as the leader of the Dark Elves, he had only been an ordinary Dark Elf. The previous Dark Elven Patriarch was also a member of the Dark Elven race with an ordinary bloodline. But the White Elves had always controlled this place. If they wanted to, they could come here at any time. Moreover, the White Elves had never lacked high-level bloodlines. Every generation had 3 or 4 High Elves. Lila Gavik and the other Dark Elves did not understand why. They thought it was because their bloodlines were purer. Only now did they understand that it wasn't because of the so-called bloodline. It was because they had been embezzling. They were both watchers and thieves. They claimed that Amanda Deer's blood would corrupt the elves. But they themselves had never stopped using Armand Dill's blood. Was there anyone more shameless than them in this world? Lila Gavik had never believed that story either. Although the story was also spread among the Dark Elves. Lila Gavik believed that his will would not be tainted by the water of enlightenment. Lila Gavik looked at Moscow Pool. A smile appeared on his face. Have you used the water of enlightenment before? Moscow Pool looked at Lila Gavik. You know, the water of enlightenment can only be used once. It won't work the second time. I thought a piece of trash like you awakened a high-level bloodline with the water of enlightenment. You're not the only genius in this world. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1567. Suddenly, Lila Gage and Moscow Pool stopped at the same time. In front of them was an empty field. Corpses of abyss nesters were everywhere. It seemed like a huge battle had taken place here. There were around 100 corpses. What's going on? Could it be Undine or the 2 children? Lila Gavich asked doubtfully. Moscow Pool shook his head. These abyss nesters aren't easy to deal with. Their abilities are very effective against elves. There's no way the 3 of them killed so many of them. Who else could it be other than the 3 of them? Moscow Pool and Lila Gavich discovered after a careful inspection that there was no sign of Messiah. There were many traces at the scene, some of which were obviously left by humans. There was also a magical aura at the scene. Spiritualist. Both of them came to the same conclusion. What's going on? Why is there a spiritualist here? Other than your own people, why did you let outsiders in? No, why would I let outsiders in? Moscow Pool stared at Lila Gage. Then why are there outsiders here? Aren't you an outsider? When Lila Gavik heard what Moscow said, he was so angry that he almost started a fight with him. Still, Lila Gavik endured it. Don't you have any clues? No, I don't even know how they got here. Really? Lila Gavik didn't trust Moscow Prior at all. I don't have to explain anything to you. There are quite a lot of them. They should have left in this direction. Lila Gage kept staring at Moscow Pool, paying attention to his expression. Moscow Pool hesitated for a while. Let's go and take a look, he said. Are they here for the water of enlightenment too? Lila Gavich asked in a probing manner. Mesko's expression changed slightly. Lila Gavik asked again, "Is our Mendator's seal in that direction?" Mason didn't say anything else and headed straight in that direction. "Gaia, will something happen to the president?" "No, we're all fine." "Do you think Chen is worse than you?" Although these words were hurtful, it was the truth. All of them combined weren't Qin Zhao's match. Suddenly, everyone stopped in their tracks. A lava river was blocking their way. On the opposite side of the lava river, there were two closed stone doors. That's right. It was a man-made stone door. Why is there a stone door? Could this be the treasure the guild leader mentioned? But how do we cross this river? Not everyone could fly, and not everyone could jump over a lava river that was more than 20 meters wide. Gaia thought for a moment and said, "I'll drive you there." With that, Gaia transformed into a fire dragon and carried half of them over. Then, they would turn around and pick up the other half. Everyone stood in front of the two stone doors. The stone gate was very big, about 50 meters tall. It was also very beautiful. There were many cryptic patterns carved on the stone door. This kind of craftsmanship was a huge amount of work even in modern times. Moreover, looking at the traces of this stone door, it was obvious that it was not a product of this era. It was hard to imagine who the creator of this stone gate was. To be able to create such a stone door in such an underground place. How do we open it? Let me try. Gaia transformed back into a fire dragon. However, her 20-meter-long body seemed a little small in front of the two closed stone doors. Gaia used all her strength to hit the stone doors, but they didn't react at all. "No," Gaia said, shaking her head. "I can't open them with brute force. They were too heavy." The two stone doors weighed at least 1,000 tons. Gaia's strength was just a drop in the bucket for the two doors. "Gaia, fly me up," Alice said. "Ha! Did you find something?" "The patterns on it should be some kind of magic circuit," Alice said. Because the stone doors were too tall and big, Alice couldn't see everything. Gaia carried Alice and flew to the top of the stone doors. Eris began to study the lines on it. "I understand." Alice quickly understood. "Can you open these two doors?" "No problem. They look huge, but they're actually not that complicated," Alice said. Alice said, "The maker of these two stone doors isn't an expert in magic." Alice sounded quite proud. Of course, she did have the right to be proud. She might not be the most powerful in the association. But she was definitely the most knowledgeable in magic. And it covered a lot of areas. Alice returned to the ground. She looked around again. Finally, she pointed at the lava river not far away and said, "Do you see the valve at the edge of the lava river? Open it." Angelit stepped forward and opened the valve. The valve was a small mechanism, but it was not too complicated. After the valve was opened, the lava flowed into a ditch. Then it flowed along the ditch to the middle of the stone doors. The patterns on the stone doors began to light up. Crack, boom, boom, the stone doors began to make loud grinding sounds. Everyone took a step back. After all, the two stone doors were too big. Even just opening them gave them the feeling of a landslide. Facing these two stone doors, everyone felt how insignificant they were. However, when the two stone doors opened to their fullest, they began to close again. "Go in, or they'll close." Everyone hurried through the stone doors. Fortunately, the stone doors didn't close too quickly. After everyone went in, the stone doors were still slowly closing. The lava from before was still flowing along the ditch. At the same time, it illuminated the passage behind the stone doors. There were many corpses on the ground, and many metal statues were placed on both sides. Wow, these are saint carvings, Ruan Faxben exclaimed. Ruan Faxi exclaimed, the method of making the saint carving has long been lost. I didn't expect to see it again here. Saint carvings. Everyone looked at Ruan Faxben in confusion. Ruan Faxben said with a regretful expression, unfortunately, the chairman isn't here. Otherwise, he could bring all these statues back. What a pity. These statues were all 5 meters tall and had different postures. They weighed at least a few tons. Even Gaia couldn't carry them around all the time. Ruan Faxi had been studying the statues for a while, unwilling to leave at all. Ruan, how long are you going to stay here? Chapter 1568. Just then, Moore suddenly saw a line of words at the base of the statue. But he didn't understand what it said. Mole reached out to touch the words on the base, but he erased the words instead. Crack, suddenly, the statue in front of Moore moved. Ha! This statue seems to be moving. Moore looked up at the tall statue in front of him. Of course, what? Moore, get out of the way! Ruan Faxben yelled. At that moment, the statue in front of Moore suddenly raised its great sword and slashed down at Moore's head. Whoosh! Moore didn't react in time, but Ingelit charged forward. He dodged Moore in the blink of an eye. But everyone saw that one of Angelite's arms was cut off. Ingelit fell to the ground, screaming. Ingelit, everyone exclaimed. Just then, the statue raised its great sword and slashed at Ingelit again. Boom! Jolanash also made her move. The statue was too close to Ingelit and Moore. She used a wind elemental spell, Violent Blast. The statue, which was several meters tall and weighed several tons, was blown several meters away and fell to the ground. Moore Raz went up to stop Angelite's bleeding and then gave him a wound suppression. The statue stood up again. This time, Gaia pulled out her great sword and blocked the statue's attack. The passage was large, but it couldn't allow Gaia to transform. But even if she didn't transform, she could still block the statue's attack. Gaia, you have to destroy it completely, Ruan Faxben said. There's a core hidden in its body. You have to break its core. Otherwise, it won't stop, Ruan Faxben said. Where's the core? Not necessarily. It could be anywhere. Gaia slashed with her great sword, and the statue was sent flying again. The great sword was also broken by Gaia. However, when the divine carving statue stood up again, the broken sword was like a magnet, returning to the fracture, and the crack healed. What kind? Gaia asked. I don't know. This is the first time I've seen a statue. Boom, boom, Jolanash covered for Gaia and shot out 2 exploding flames. The statue's body was completely unharmed. The statue's body was made of metal. Jolanash's explosive bombs were powerful, but their destructive power against metal was limited. Gaia swung his great sword, leaving a fiery arc in the air as he slashed down heavily. The saint carving statue's body was directly cut off from the shoulder. But the statue's severed body was like its sword before, mending itself. Gaia frowned. There was no end to this fight. Lava! Push it into the lava, cried Ruan Faxben. Gaia, move! Jolanash yelled. Gaia trusted Jolanash and backed away. Jolanash unleashed another violent impact. The statue was knocked into the wall, and then fell into the lava. But soon, it stood up again. But how could Gaia give it a chance? The great sword swung out and cut off the statue's legs. After losing its main body, the statue's legs quickly melted into the magma. Under Gaia's suppression, the sculpture soon melted completely. Whoosh, Moore, did you erase the words under the statue? Ruan Faxabin asked in an interrogative tone. Moore knew that he was in trouble. Not only did he almost die under the statue's sword, but he also caused Ingelit to lose an arm. He even caused Ingelit to lose an arm. Moore opened his mouth and then lowered his head silently. He didn't say anything else. Okay, now's not the time to blame. Raz, can you reattach Angelite's arm? Moore Raz shook his head. Angelite's wound has magic damage on it. Moore Raz also blamed herself. As a support, she should have protected her teammates at all times. But it had happened so suddenly that she couldn't react in time. This made her very depressed. Maybe the president has a way. Gaia nodded. She knew that now was definitely not the time to blame. Chen Zhao wasn't here, so she had to calm the team down. Okay, let's continue, Gaia said. Angelit, I'll carry you. Angelit shook his head. The wound was still painful, but with Moore Raz's help, he could barely hold on. No need. I can walk myself. Gaia was the absolute main force in the team now. If Gaia carried him, her combat ability would be greatly reduced. Don't worry, Gaia said. Chen will find a way to heal your broken arm. I really should buy insurance for myself, Ingelit said, his face pale. As soon as this sentence was said, everyone's mood also eased. Ingelit, I'm sorry. It's all my fault, Moore said, lowering his head in shame. It's okay. I can run faster without an arm. The more Ingelit comforted him, the worse Moore felt. Ruan, as long as we don't erase the words on the base, the statues won't be activated, right? The words on the statues are ancient magic. They mean to stop. If you erase the words, they'll definitely be activated. Unless they're completely destroyed, they'll keep attacking the surrounding creatures. Apart from erasing the words, there's another set of rules. As long as the conditions are met, the statues will also be activated. What conditions? I don't know, Ruan said. It depends on how the owner of the statues set it. In other words, we have to be careful at all times. We don't know when the statues will be activated. Yes. Then, everyone passed through the tunnel. They found that both sides of the tunnel were filled with statues. There were at least hundreds of statues along the way. It was like an army. This also made everyone's hearts jump. No one knew whether or not these saint carvings would suddenly awaken. One statue was already so difficult to deal with. If all the statues woke up at the same time, they would die for sure. Even Gaia, who had always been bold, felt her heart pounding. After walking for more than 10 minutes, they finally reached the end of the tunnel. Then, their eyes lit up. An incomparably spacious field appeared in front of them. The field was at least 3 square kilometers. In the center was a circular field. Magma flowed around the field. Further away, there were rock pillars of different heights. It's so big, please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1569. The sports field was surrounded by saint carvings. At the other end of the field was a mountain wall. There was a stone sculpture of a ferocious-looking dragon head on the wall. The dragon's neck extended to the center of the field like an arch bridge. Below the dragon head was a trough. Water flowed from the dragon's mouth and filled the trough in the middle. This water is so sweet. Jalanash took a sip. At this moment, everyone felt a little thirsty. Although they were protected by armor or magic dragon scales, they still felt the heat. Don't drink it yet. Let me see if it's drinkable. Ruan Faxben stepped forward and filled a bottle with some water. Then he took out some magic powder and sprinkled it into the bottle. The water in the bottle began to boil. Ruan Faxben was chanting a magic spell. The water in the bottle calmed down again. It should be fine, Ruan Faxben said. What spell is this? What does it do? This is pure true spirit spell. If the food or water is harmful to the human body, there will be a warning, Ruan Faxben said. Ruan Faxben said, since there's no warning, it should be harmless to humans. But just then, Jolanash, who had just taken a sip of water, began to tremble all over. Jolanash, what's wrong? Moraz realized that something was wrong with Jolanash. Jolanash's body trembled even more violently. Her eyes seemed to be covered in a layer of ink. I feel like. Jolanash's head drooped before she could finish her sentence. Moraz saw Jolanash's strangeness and hurried over to support her. Ruan, didn't you say that the water was fine? What's going on? Gaia asked angrily. I don't know either. Ruan Faxben was speechless too. He didn't understand why the pure true spirit spell failed either. Suddenly, Jolanash raised her head. Her face was covered in black lines. By now, everyone had realized that something had happened to Jolanash. Jolanash suddenly reached out and grabbed Moraz. Jolanash, let go. Moraz cried out in pain. Gaia immediately rushed forward, grabbed Jolanash's arm, and forcefully pulled Moraz away. But Jolanash aimed her palm at Gaia's chest. Bang! Gaia was sent flying more than 10 meters away. No one expected Jolanash to be so heavy-handed on Gaia. Gaia stood up, her chest a bloody mess. Gaia spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was extremely pale. Everyone's hair stood on end as they looked at Jolanash warily. At this time, Jolanash flew into the air and landed on the dragon's head. None of them noticed that there was a magic array on top of the dragon's head. Jolanash released black flames from her palms towards the magic circle. When the black flames landed on the magic array, they didn't explode. Instead, they were absorbed by the magic array. Suddenly, one of the saint carvings around him became familiar. Oh no, the saint carving statue. Wait, the statues aren't coming for us. Ruan Faxi realized that the statue actually passed through the crowd and jumped up when it got close to Jolanash, who was at the head of the dragon. Looking at the statue, Jolanash raised one hand and spat out black flames at the statue. Bang! The statue instantly shattered in the air. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Was Jolanash that powerful? Why didn't she use it just now? After the statue shattered in the air, it didn't recover. Jolanash continued with her work. What's Jolanash doing? I don't know, I feel like something bad is about to happen. Should we stop her? Stop. How? Jolanash doesn't even recognize us now. Even if we defeat her, what then? Kill her. Everyone's expression was grim. At this time, 2 more holy statues awakened. These 2 statues were just like the first one. They ignored everyone and attacked Jolanash directly. Jolanash still only used one hand. The remnants of the 2 statues fell to the ground. Jolanash, what's wrong with you? Wake up, Giselle called anxiously. She looks like she's being controlled by something, Gaia said with a serious expression. Purify. Moraz cast a purification spell on Jolanash. But Jolanash didn't react. Instead, she raised her hand and released a black flame at Moraz. Watch out! Engelit, who had lost his arm, hurriedly grabbed Moraz and escaped before the black flames reached them. Jolanash, how did you become like this? Wake up. She's being controlled. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Everyone turned around abruptly and saw two strangers standing behind them. One was tall and skinny, the other a fat man with a big belly. Who are you? I should be the one asking you this. Who are you people? Why did you barge in here? Mason stared at the crowd coldly. I think it's best if you kill her now instead of arguing here. Otherwise, we'll all die. Lila Gavich looked at Jolinash's back, his eyes filled with worry. We won't kill our companions. Companions? She's no longer your companion, Lila Gavich said meaningfully. Lila Gavich said meaningfully, she has now become Amanda Didier's puppet. Armand Didier. The legendary son of Element. Alice asked. Alice, do you know what's going on? No. Alice shook her head. Alice shook her head. I only know of Amanda Didier, the legendary son of Element. Many elemental mages use the name of the son of Element to cast many spells. At this time, 4 more statues awakened. Just like before, their target was Jolinash. Everyone looked at Lila Gavich and Moscow Pool. Sirs, you'd better tell us what's going on. As you can see, the dragon head is the son of elemental Armand Didier. He has been sealed here for 3,000 years, Moscow said. What about you? Who are you? The protector of this place, Mason said. At the same time, he's also a burglar, Lila Gavich added. Chapter 1570. While they were talking, another 8 statues woke up. Gaia looked at Jolinash and turned around. Is there any way to wake her up other than killing her? No. Not just her. Her descendants will be cursed by Armand Didier as well. Moscow Pool pointed at Lila Gavich. Just like this bastard. Lila Gavich glanced at Moscow. You better not challenge my bottom line now. What? Gaia spat out another mouthful of blood. Mole Raz hurried over to heal Gaia. By then, Jolinash had already dealt with the 8 statues. Then, the 16 statues woke up. This time, Jolinash wouldn't be able to deal with them so easily. With one hand, Jolinash continued to charge the magic circle on the dragon's head as she fought back against the statues. Klaus, do you have tranquilizer bullets? Yes. Take Jolinash down, Gaia said. Klaus took out the tranquilizer gun and its bullets. From dozens of meters away, he aimed at Jolinash. Whoosh, however, when the tranquilizer bullet was less than a meter away from Jolinash, it suddenly stopped in the air. Jolinash looked at everyone, her expression becoming even more ferocious. She spread her arms, releasing a terrifying wave of air from her body. The shockwave abruptly spread out like water ripples in all directions. *T. Moraz hurriedly cast an AoE holy barrier. When the wave reached everyone, they felt that the barrier was about to shatter. Moraz cast another holy barrier on them. And another one. After 3 buffs, they finally managed to hold on. However, the wave didn't stop. It continued to spread to the edge. The surrounding saint carvings were all affected by the shock wave. The moment they were touched by the wave, they all disintegrated. However, Jolinash seemed to be much weaker after using her ultimate move. Jolinash fell from the dragon's head and landed in the middle of the sink. We can't let her replenish her power. We have to stop her. Moscow said. With that, Mason swung his arms at Jolinash, throwing 2 daggers at her. The water trough beneath Jolinash's feet kept sending energy into her body. As for the 2 daggers flying towards her, she completely ignored them. Just like before, there seemed to be an invisible shield around Jolinash. Lila Gavich, are you going to stand aside and watch? Moscow Pool scolded. Lila Gage hesitated for a moment, then finally decided to act. Lila Gage walked towards Jolly Nash. Jocelyn Nash raised her hand and pointed it at Lila Gage. But in the next moment, she hesitated. After a while, Jolly Nash put down her palm. When Lila Gage was 2 meters away from Jolly Nash, she stopped. Jolly Nash suddenly sensed Lila Gage's hostility. In an instant, Jolly Nash attacked Lila Gage. Black flames burst out of Jolly Nash's palm. Lila Gage immediately hid in the shadows, grabbing towards Jolly Nash at the same time. But the moment Lila Gage grabbed Jolly Nash's wrist, he felt a sharp burning pain in his palm. Ah! Lila Gage hurriedly stepped back, clutching her wrist in pain. Jolly Nash grabbed in the air from 3 to 4 meters away. Lila Gage immediately sensed danger. An extremely dark power surged towards her from all directions. Lila Gage's scalp was about to explode. Shadow. Luckily, shadow could be used. The hand of darkness missed. Lila Gage turned and ran. By then, the water trough beneath Jolly Nash's feet had already dried up. Jolly Nash's aura became even more terrifying. She returned to the dragon's head and continued to charge the magic circle. Rumble, the ground started shaking slightly. We can't let this go on, we have to stop her. Moscow Pool yelled. If Amanda breaks free from the seal, all of us will die. Moscow Pool looked at Gaia and the others. What about you? Gaia's expression darkened. You don't have to do it, I'll do it. Gaia, your injuries haven't healed yet, Raz said. It's okay, your magic has helped me recover a lot. That's not healing, it's just suppressing my injuries. It's okay. Gaia shook her head. Then, she took a few steps forward. Roar! In an instant, Gaia turned into a 20-meter-long fire dragon. Lila Gage and Moscow Pool stared at Gaia, dumbfounded, their faces filled with disbelief. Jolly Nash looked at Gaia and raised her arm to aim at her. Whoosh! Black flames shot towards Gaia again. Gaia rose into the air, dodging the black flames. However, Gaia had no choice but to avoid the black flames. At the same time, he aimed at Jolly Nash and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. The dragon breath landed in front of Jolly Nash. Although it didn't hurt her, she took a few steps back. Jolly Nash had to stop charging the magic circle as well. That's amazing. Lila Gage and Moscow Pool looked at each other. Jolly Nash's expression was completely twisted. This time, she changed her tactic. She raised her arms high, and a black sphere appeared above her head. The black sphere suddenly exploded, turning into countless small balls that shot in all directions. Boom, 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 after the small black balls spread to the surrounding space, they exploded again. Gaia was too big and couldn't avoid all the black balls. In an instant, black flames erupted from Gaia's body. Gaia let out a dragon roar and landed heavily on the ground. But then, Gaia stood up again. Whoosh, whoosh, suddenly, a figure appeared behind Jolly Nash. Engelite had appeared there at some point. But the moment Engelite got close to Jolly Nash, he was blocked by an invisible barrier around her. Engelite instantly fled from that spot. Jolly Nash's eyes were pitch black and emotionless. She pointed in the direction Engelite escaped and pointed with her finger. Holy light barrier. Raz immediately cast a holy light barrier on Engelite. But the holy light barrier was instantly broken. Engelite's shoulder was pierced by the black light. He rolled on the ground a few times. Klaus, cover me, Moore said in a low voice. Moore's clone had already secretly appeared on the dragon's neck and was carefully reaching for Jolly Nash. Klaus and the others also fired wildly at Jolly Nash. Chapter 1571. Klaus and the lightning squad fired at Jolanash. Under their fire, ripples appeared around Jolanash. Jolanash looked at Klaus and the others. She was about to attack Klaus when Moore's clone pounced. Boom, this was a spell Moore had just learnt, self-destruct. Now Moore didn't need to carry a bag of explosives every time he used a clone. Moore's self-destruct spell was quite powerful. The explosion was equivalent to a kilogram of yellow explosives. But the moment the explosion spread, it contracted violently. That feeling was like a movie being played backwards. After the flames disappeared, Jolanash stood in the same spot, unharmed. Everyone's expression turned solemn. Such a terrifying explosion had no effect on Jolanash. Jolanash continued to charge the magic circle. The terrifying atmosphere continued to spread. Everyone felt an indescribable sense of despair in their hearts. Just then, Gaia stood up again. Roar! Jolanash shot black flames at Gaia from her palm. Gaia also breathed dragon breath at the same time. Two flames, one black and one red, met in the air. Klaus took out his sniper rifle and pointed it at Jolanash, but he lowered the muzzle slightly. Bang! The power of a large-caliber sniper rifle was extraordinary. Jolanash's body trembled slightly. Although it wasn't a big impact, it did affect her a little. Engelit also climbed up at this time. His shoulder was bleeding profusely. Moraz threw a healing spell and a holy barrier to Engelit from a distance. Engelit closed in on Jolanash again. Engelite's attack power wasn't strong, but it didn't mean he was defenseless. Engelite's dagger stabbed out dozens of times in an instant. And every time, it was at the same spot. Klaus's eyes glinted. He swung his sniper rifle and fired a bullet. Bang! The bullet hit the spot where Engelit had attacked. The bullet pierced Jolanash's protective shield and hit her shoulder at the same time. Jolanash took a few steps back. Her shoulder was badly mangled. They were still companions. Klaus hadn't aimed at Jolanash's vitals. If it had been any other position, a sniper rifle bullet would have been enough to tear his body apart. Even heavily injured, Jolanash remained expressionless. But at this time, Gaia's dragon breath had already shot over. Bang! The impact of the explosion was shocking, but the result was the same as Moer's self-destruction. But everyone saw clearly how Jolanash did it. She opened her mouth and sucked in the dragon breath. Everyone's expression froze. Is that even possible? The wound on Jolanash's shoulder was healing at a visible rate. This was a heavy blow to everyone. The damage they had dealt to Jolanash with all their might had lost its effect in the blink of an eye. At that moment, a large number of saint carvings began to pour out of the tunnel. All of the divine carvings awakened. Their target was also very clear. It was Jolene Nash. There was a huge number of them, at least 500 of them. Furthermore, every single one of them was extremely powerful. Guya's heart stirred, and he spat out dragon breath again. She did not hope to defeat Jolanash, but at least to restrain her. But this time, Jolanash did not intend to take it at all. Jolanash clenched her fists, and a pair of giant black palms appeared out of thin air. One of the black palms blocked Guya's dragon breath. The other clenched fist smashed towards Guya. Guya was smashed heavily, and was flung dozens of meters away. The pair of black palms was so powerful that the saint carvings could not even reach the center of the square. With just the palms, it was like swatting flies. Every time the black palms landed, dozens of them would be flattened. This lethality, this speed of killing. No matter how many saint carvings there were, they could not withstand being killed. Everyone was in despair. Right now, Jolanash could not be defeated at all. And Jolanash did not care about the incoming saint carvings at all. She continued with her work. Everyone felt as if a rock was pressing down on their hearts. The rocks around the dragon's head and neck were crumbling. Just then, Dragon's eyes lit up. It was a pair of turbid eyes. Just looking into those eyes sent chills down everyone's spine. Mescopool and Lila Gavik looked at each other. At this moment, there was no hostility between them. There was only despair. Rumble, just then, a few hills outside the square suddenly exploded. Then, 4 huge figures rushed out from the ruins of the hills. Dragons. They were 4 dragons, red, white, yellow, and azure. Everyone was shocked by this sudden turn of events. They were real dragons. Its huge body was like a small mountain. They exuded a suffocating dragon's aura. No one knew if these 4 dragons were friends or foes. If they were enemies, then it was all over. One Jolanash was already too much for them to handle. Now that there were 4 more dragons, they were no match for them. However, if they are friends, maybe things would turn around. The 4 dragons circled around in the air for a while. The red dragon saw Gaia and landed beside Gaia. Then, it transformed into a tall woman of the same build. Descendant of our race, I never thought there would be descendants of our race in the human world. This fire dragon woman was even taller than Gaia. When she mentioned Gaia, everyone immediately tensed up. What are you doing? Everyone looked at the fire dragon woman warily. Don't you want me to save her? The power of darkness is killing her life. Hearing this woman's words, everyone stopped in their tracks. The woman sent her power into Gaia's body, and Gaia's wounds began to heal slowly. Seeing that Gaia was recovering and that the woman didn't hurt him, everyone sighed in relief. At this moment, the yellow, white, and azure dragons in the sky dove at Jolanash. Rumble, at this moment, the rocks under Jolanash's feet suddenly cracked. A bloody mouth suddenly shot up into the sky and bit the yellow dragon in one bite. Roar, the 100-meter-long yellow dragon's body was directly torn apart by that bloody mouth. Everyone's heart went cold, their faces full of fear. That was a dragon. That was a 100-meter-long dragon, and it was killed in one move just like that. The rocks completely cracked, and Amanda Didier finally broke free from the seal. Just the exposed dragon head and neck were already 100 meters long. His entire body was probably over 300 meters long. This was a real giant. Chapter 1572. Amanda Dill chewed on a third of the yellow dragon's body and swallowed it. As if that wasn't enough, Amanda Dill lowered his head and stuffed the rest of the yellow dragon into his mouth as well. At this time, the rock wall connected to Amanda Dill's neck also began to crack. He had finally broken free from the seal. At this moment, everyone clearly saw Amanda Dill's true body. Amanda Dill was also a dragon, but he didn't have wings. He looked like a lizard. Maybe the salamanders that were wreaking havoc here had something to do with him. Amanda Dill's body was mainly black. However, there were delicate red, green, blue, and gray patterns on the black scales. His front limbs were ridiculously thick and strong, unlike ordinary giant dragons whose limbs were more well-proportioned. His hind limbs were longer, making him look like a bodybuilder who had trained too much. However, in everyone's eyes, he looked more like a deformed monster. He didn't have wings on his back, but he had a pair of huge bone spikes. His tail, which was dozens of meters long, also had a row of bone spikes of different lengths. The 3 dragons also changed their expressions. Suddenly, Amanda Dill swung his tail at the white dragon. The white dragon dodged immediately, but the bone spikes on Amanda Dill's tail cut through the white dragon's wings. The white dragon, which had just risen into the air, crashed to the ground. Amanda Dill lunged at the white dragon in a frenzy. Roar, the white dragon screamed in pain. Amanda Dill had already bitten its neck. With a crack, it was broken. The red dragon and the green dragon, who had returned to their dragon forms, breathed out at the same time. They wanted to stop Amanda Dill from devouring their companion. However, Amanda Didier simply turned a blind eye to the two dragons' dragon breaths. He devoured the white dragon's body in a frenzy. Everyone was trembling under Amanda Dill's terrifying aura. He was the embodiment of madness. I'm so happy. You even prepared food for me when I broke the seal. After eating the white dragon, Amanda Dill turned his eyes to the red and green dragons. His teeth were far more developed than normal dragons. His physique was also several times that of normal dragons. Everyone could feel a torrential aura emanating from his body. It was the same for the red and green dragons. However, they did not flee. They were still trying to hurt Amanda Dill. However, Amanda Deer's thick dragon scales were so powerful that they felt despair. Amanda Deer's hind legs kicked hard, and it pounced towards the gathering red. The red dragon tried to escape. But Amanda Didier was too fast. His strength and speed completely suppressed the red dragon. Armand Dill grabbed the red dragon with his forelegs. Roar! The red dragon struggled. But Amanda Didier's power made it impossible for her to resist. Amanda Didier pulled hard, and one of the red dragon's wings was torn off. The red dragon screamed. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. But against such a prehistoric monster, they were powerless. In the beginning, they thought that the appearance of the four giant dragons would bring about a turning point. However, they found that the four dragons could do nothing against Amanda Didier. In fact, they were only here to deliver food. They could only watch as Amanda Didier ravaged the red dragon, but there was nothing they could do. Amanda Didier tore off the red dragon's flesh piece by piece and stuffed it into his mouth. Blood splattered on the square. Finally, the red dragon lost its vitality. Amanda Didier nibbled away at the remaining flesh of the red dragon. The green dragon tried to resist one last time. But there was no effect. Amanda Didier ate the red dragon unhurriedly. He was not in a hurry to fight back against the green dragon. Undine looked at the two huge stone doors before her. Chen Zhao kept looking at them. You elves are really awesome, he said, sighing. You can even do such a huge project, and it was 3,000 years ago. Mom, how do I open these doors? I don't know. Undine shook her head. Chen Zhao walked up and forcefully pushed open the two stone doors. A human-sized gap appeared in the stone door. Undine looked at Chen Zhao in surprise. You can do that. Hurry up. Don't drag your feet. These doors are heavy. Actually, the doors weren't as heavy as they thought. They only weighed about 2,000 tons. This weight was quite light for Chen Zhao. Undine, Bader, and Bao hurriedly passed through the doors. Only then did Chen Zhao rush in before the doors closed. Rumble, just then, there was a huge sound in front of them. The passageway behind the stone door trembled, and the gravel above them fell continuously. Hurry up, Undine said. The tunnel looks like it's going to collapse. The four of them scampered forward. However, when they ran through the passageway, they saw an unbelievably large beast devouring a green dragon. Wow! Did I miss something? Chen Zhao exclaimed. Everyone looked at Chen Zhao. When the members of the association saw Chen Zhao, they couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Amanda Didier glanced at Chen Zhao's group. A few more are here to die. My servants, go kill them. A few more have come to die. My servants, go and kill them. He clearly wasn't interested in these humans. They weren't even enough for him. Chen Zhao looked at Jolanash, who was floating in the air. Chen Zhao looked at Jolanash, who was floating in the air. Air. Can someone explain to me if that's Jolanash? President, Jolanash is being controlled, Ruan Faxben said. Chen Zhao took off his helmet and waved at Jolanash. Jolanash, it's me. Do you recognize me? Lila Gavik and Moscow Pearl looked at him in surprise. How could it be him? Were these people his subordinates? Just then, Jolanash raised her arms and pointed at him. Watch out! Lila Gavik shouted. They had suffered at Jolanash's hands. They knew exactly how scary Jolene Nash was. Black flames shot toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao raised his hand and the black flames charged at him. The power of this flame seemed to be very ordinary, not even as hot as the magma. However, these black flames seemed to have some sort of corrosive power. Unfortunately, it was also of little threat to Chen Zhao. Everyone realized that Jolanash's ultimate move didn't seem to work on Chen Zhao. Jolanash, if you do this again, I'll spank you. Jolanash's black flames suddenly paused. Her face finally showed some expression. However, she seemed to be in great pain. The next moment, her painful expression disappeared. She was just as expressionless as before. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Godly Emperor mobile version. Chapter 1573. Lila Gavik and Moscow Pool were speechless. Spank her. You'd have to be able to do that. President, it's useless. Jolanash doesn't seem to have her own consciousness. Think of something, Moraz said. Chen Zhao was in a difficult position. He definitely couldn't kill Jolanash. Not in this lifetime. Do you have any way to make my subordinates wake up? Chen Zhao asked. Hee. Human, kill me and she'll wake up. Amanda Didier had already eaten the last of the green dragons. I see. Chen Zhao touched his chin. Then I'll kill you. Everyone thought that Chen Zhao was crazy. Even the members of the association didn't have much confidence in Chen Zhao now. They'd seen with their own eyes how terrifying and crazy Amanda Didier was. The 4 dragons were like little pets in front of him. Before that, you'll have to defeat my slave first, Amanda Didier said in a mocking tone. Chen Zhao looked at Jolanash and threaded the needle. The invisible thread wrapped around Jolanash's body. Jolanash instantly fell from the sky and was dragged in front of Chen Zhao. Everyone was stunned. How did Chen Zhao do it? Chen Zhao didn't even move. How did he catch Jolanash? Lila Gavik and Moscow Prior were both shocked and bewildered. After all, they had been beaten up badly by Jolanash before. But Chen Zhao had caught Jolanash so easily. Were they cheating? Both of them were very disappointed. If Chen Zhao could find something, Amanda Didier wouldn't have broken the seal. Now that Amanda Didier had broken free from the seal, it was too late. Surprise flashed in Undine's eyes. She thought back to the abyss nestmaker she'd encountered before. The abyssal nestmaker's movements seemed to be restrained by an invisible force. It seemed that Chen Zhao had really helped him in secret that time. Chen Zhao used the invisible thread to lift Jolanash before him and patted her face. Jolanash, wake up. President, it's useless. Jolanash can't wake up, Engelit said. Engelit, your shoulder. Was it done by this ugly guy? Chen Zhao's anger was full. He looked up at Amanda Didier. Very well, you've angered me. Very imposing, but... Amanda Didier's huge claw slapped Chen Zhao's head. But, it's nothing before me. Rumble, everyone's expression froze. Was it over? Just like that. Hearing Qin Zhao's confident tone, they had thought that Qin Zhao had some ability. In the end, he was slapped to death by Armand Didier. Roar! Suddenly, Amanda Deer let out a strange cry and quickly retreated. His left forearm was bloody. Qin Zhao was hugging a thick pillar. The black pillar was Armand Dill's toe. Qin Zhao threw the claw into the dark lava. Qin Zhao instinctively liked it. Just like when he encountered Mikados and his army of dead fetus monsters. Everyone stared at Qin Zhao, dumbfounded. Their expressions were completely frozen. Did Qin Zhao pull off Amanda Dill's toe? How was that possible? Looks like you taste good, Qin Zhao said, grinning. I'm going to kill you. Furious, Amanda Deer swung his huge claw again. This time, he didn't attack recklessly. He attached dark power to his claw. Qin Zhao wasn't afraid at all. Fist. A green fist whizzed out. Boom! Amanda Deer took a step back. Undine, Bao, and Bader's eyes almost popped out. Along the way, they only had one impression of Qin Zhao. That was nagging. Apart from nagging, Qin Zhao didn't show any power at all. But now, they realized that Qin Zhao just didn't show it. When Qin Zhao truly showed it, it was a frightening power. Human, you actually made me retreat. You're not bad, but it's not enough. Far from enough. Do you think you can defeat me just like that? You're too naive. You don't understand what you're facing. I'm a demigod. Not enough. Clone, all powers return to one. You can try now. Qin Zhao widened his eyes. Flames seemed to shoot out of them. I'll smash your head. Rumble, Amanda Deer's tail swung over. Qin Zhao was lifted into the air and smashed heavily into the wall outside the square. Everyone felt a piercingly cold tearing sensation as the wind whistled past them. Is that all you have? Qin Zhao stood up from the rubble again. Die! Amanda Didier suddenly opened his mouth and black flames shot toward Qin Zhao. Amanda Deer's black flames weren't the same as Jallanash's. It was more than 100 times more powerful. Shut your dog mouth. Qin Zhao punched again. The solid fist went against the black flames and smashed into Amanda Deer's mouth. Pfft, the teeth in Amanda Deer's mouth were so tight that they almost broke. His huge body was forced to take several steps back. Demigod or God are just self-titled titles. You're a demigod. Qin Zhao patted the black flames on his body. I can kill a dozen of you even with my eyes closed. Amanda Deer spat out a mouthful of blood and a few broken teeth. His expression became even more savage and furious. Human, you succeeded. You've successfully angered me. I've always been very successful at angering people. Qin Zhao shrugged. I'm going to eat you. On this point, we have a common understanding. I also want to eat you. Amanda Deer's front limbs smashed into the ground. The entire square shook. Do you really think you can beat me? I really do, Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. Qin Zhao strolled toward Amanda Deer. Amanda Deer didn't dare to be careless now. He hadn't used his full strength in the exchange just now, but he could feel Qin Zhao's threat. Qin Zhao's ferocious eyes flashed. Before I kill you, I have one last question for you. I'll allow you to ask me one last question before you die. Are you Hyperion? What? Amanda Deer froze. But Qin Zhao's attack had already arrived. Fist shadows, storm. Without holding back, Qin Zhao poured out all the immortal power in his body. Chapter 1574. The first punch landed on Amanda Didier's chin. Dragon blood spurted out of Amanda Didier's mouth. Before he could react, an even more brutal attack was already upon him. Everyone was watching, and the shock in their hearts could not be any greater. Chen Zhao's every punch tore through a piece of flesh. His fists were also so fast that no one could see them clearly. Bang! The bone spur on Amanda Didier's back that looked like a triangular blade had already shattered under Chen Zhao's attacks. Chen Zhao dashed over and broke the bone spur with one punch. Then he grabbed it and pressed it down. Amanda Didier's body was pierced by his own bone spur. Roar! The sky fell and the ground cracked. Amanda Didier's roar caused the ground to shake. Amanda Didier slapped his claws at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao turned around and punched. Amanda Didier's claws shattered. Chen Zhao jumped onto Amanda Didier's head. Grabbing two protruding horns, he pressed his body down. Amanda Didier's huge head smashed onto the ground. Everyone stayed far away from him. The shockwaves from the battle between the two could kill them. Chen Zhao started smashing down on Amanda Didier's head. Roar! Stop! Stop! I'll dispel, I said I'd smash your head, so I'll do it. Chen Zhao's tone was fierce. Bang! Chen Zhao punched down and Amanda Didier's head smashed onto the ground again. Blood spurted out of his mouth, nose, and eyes. The shockwaves spread in all directions. The power of this punch was more than a few 100,000 tons. It was easy to imagine how great the impact was. The original circular plaza had already been completely destroyed. Chen Zhao's dark lava couldn't devour Amanda Didier's body completely. His body was simply too huge. So, Chen Zhao planned to dismember him. Amanda Didier's life force was too tenacious. Chen Zhao broke his neck, but he wasn't dead yet. Whoosh! Ruan Faxi was resisting the waves of attacks that were whistling towards him. Behind him, more Raz kept putting light barriers on him. President! Leave some for us, Ruan Faxibin shouted. Originally, he had thought that after the battle was over, he would be able to get as many corpses as he wanted. But he soon realized that every time Chen Zhao peeled off a piece of Amanda Didier's flesh, it would be swallowed by the dark lava around him. Clearly, Chen Zhao planned to devour Amanda Didier's flesh completely. Amanda Didier's flesh, skin, and scales were all rare treasures. It was even more valuable than the ordinary dragons stored in the association's warehouse. Chen Zhao swung hard and broke off a dragon horn that was more than 30 meters long. He tossed it to Ruan Fazibin. Ruan Faxi covered his head in fear. The dragon horn slid a few meters in front of him before stopping. As Chen Zhao devoured, the dark lava grew larger and larger. The dark magma began to envelop Armandidir's huge body. Armandidir's head was already a bloody mess, but he was not dead yet. He tried to stand up several times, but he couldn't do anything. Chen Zhao suppressed him with all his might. To the members of the association, they once again realized how terrifying Chen Zhao was. As for Lila Gavich, he was a bit scared. He thought of what had happened a few days ago. He had brought people to stop Chen Zhao. Now that he thought about it, it definitely wasn't something funny. It was something that made his hair stand on end. If he had lost control even a little bit, then, could he still be standing here? It was like an ant challenging an elephant. Undine also felt the same. Fortunately, they hadn't had any conflict before. Angering Chen Zhao would definitely not end well. When Armandidir was completely devoured, Chen Zhao discovered to his surprise that the amount of dark magma had increased by 10 times. Chen Zhao deactivated 10,000 spells in one and his clone. He let out a long breath. This battle definitely wasn't as easy as it seemed. Chen Zhao also used his full strength. He didn't dare to hold back at all. As for Armendadir's self-proclaimed demigod, Chen Zhao snorted. Back then, the source of the fallen had called itself a god. So, this so-called god or demigod was just their own conceit. Even the current Chen Zhao would definitely be able to take on the title of god in a certain era. Chen Zhao went to Jolanash. Jolanash was still unconscious. The black lines on her face were fading. More Raz had been examining Jolanash all this time. Jolanash finally woke up. But when she saw the mess, she froze. What happened? President, you're back. How do you feel? Chen Zhao asked. I'm fine. What's wrong? Nothing. They didn't hate Jolanash at all. But to her, they were both angry and amused. Mr. Chen, how about we talk? Lila Gavich walked to Chen Zhao. Now, Lila Gavich didn't dare to look down on everyone like he did before. If he really angered Chen Zhao, he wouldn't even be able to take a slap. Jolanash was still in a daze. Where did these extra people come from? How did she faint? And what happened after she fainted? She felt like she had missed many things. She looked at her companions, who were looking at her with half-smiles. Jolanash had a bad feeling. She felt that what had happened had something to do with her. Chen Zhao walked to Lila Gavich. What is it? Mr. Chen, I want to buy your Armandadir's blood. Chen Zhao looked around. He just fought with Armandadir. The ground was covered in Armandadir's blood, right? Isn't it all over the ground? Armandadir shook his head. These have lost their value once they leave the body. What I want is the blood and flesh on Armandadir's dragon horn. The dragon horn Chen Zhao had put away had been torn off directly. There was still a lot of blood and flesh on it. What's the price? Chen Zhao asked. Mr. Chen, you can't sell Armandadir's blood to him. He's a dirty bastard. Moscow priest immediately went up to stop him. Lila Gavich sneered inwardly, but he didn't stop Moscow's attack. If Moscow didn't say anything, Chen Zhao would probably think about it. But Moscow priest was attacking him like this. How could Chen Zhao listen to him? Indeed, it was as Lila had said. Chen Zhao glanced at Moscow coldly. What does my deal with him have to do with you? Moscow cursed inwardly. He'd been too impulsive just now. He had no right to ask Chen Zhao to do anything. Chapter 1575. Everyone had a rebellious mentality. Even Chen Zhao was the same. It was like a beggar telling Chen Zhao not to buy this car. It wasn't cost-effective. Mason knew the difference in status between him and Chen Zhao very well. He didn't have the right to ask or order Chen Zhao. Moscow Prior's goal was to stop Lila Gavich. But he defended Chen Zhao first. This wasn't a good start. It was Chen Zhao's. He'd obviously make decisions based on his own judgment. He wouldn't let someone else decide what he wanted. Mr. Chen, let's talk in private. Lila Gavich smiled. Let's talk over there, Chen Zhao said. Moscow wanted to follow, but he backed off after Chen Zhao's glare. The two went to a place with no one around. Mr. Chen, Lila Gavich said, you're definitely richer than me, so it doesn't matter how much I give you. Lila Gavich had been thinking about how to convince Chen Zhao. It wasn't easy. If he was facing a normal person, he could have many choices. He could give them money or something that normal people didn't have. He could even promise to give them power. But in front of Chen Zhao, these conditions were laughable. Especially what he often used, giving them power. If he told Chen Zhao these conditions, Chen Zhao would probably slap him in the face. He'd rub the legendary Son of Elements Amanda Dill on the ground. If he said he'd smash Amanda's head, he'd really do it. But I have a lot of connections. I even have connections with the political world. Chen Zhao furrowed his brows. He'd always avoided getting involved with the political world. The only person he knew who was involved in politics was Lauren, a former California senator. He'd retired at home now. This was because he had always been distrustful of the government. It wasn't because he was in a foreign country. It was the same even in China. Politics were dirty. Who knew when they'd be sold out by the politicians? I don't know what use this has for me, Chen Zhao said calmly. To be honest, Chen Zhao's current influence wasn't much weaker than a politician's. He could even use his capital to threaten a politician. Lila Gavich smiled. Political connections were just one of his bargaining chips. If Chen Zhao wasn't interested, he had other bargaining chips. He also understood Chen Zhao's resistance and distrust towards politicians and the government. In fact, it was the same for Lila Gavich. After all, to a certain extent, they were all aliens. I also have a special channel that allows me to get my hands on some magical materials, such as Huaxia's demon blood ore, Japan's holy mountain ashes, and Europe's holy platinum. These magical materials are all controlled by various countries and regions, and they are not allowed to be sold abroad. However, I can get my hands on them, and I can even introduce these channels to you. Recently, Dongye Tianxi, Zhen Kira, and Ruan Faxi had been complaining about the scarcity of some magic materials. As a result, they had no choice but to choose substitutes when forging weapons or magic tools. If they could gain these connections, it would indeed be a good thing for the association. If you are willing to introduce these connections to my people, then I can provide you with a portion of our mandator's flesh. This deal had nothing to do with money, but a consideration for the long-term future. Truth be told, the Supernatural Society's connections had always been limited to the government. Only West had any contact with the government. He had always lacked connections in other fields. This is mainly because of the Supernatural organization over the past 20 years. It had always been a third or fourth-rate organization. No one cared about the Supernatural organization, so they had no interest in interacting with it. Mr. Chen, I have quite a lot of connections in the business world, Lila Gavich continued, trying to convince Chen Zhao. Business connections. It was useless to him. Chen Zhao's need for connections had always been up to fate. Chen Zhao also knew that the more connections he had, the better, but he had always been undisciplined. Even though Lila Gavich had introduced him to business connections, it would be difficult for him to maintain them. Oh, I have a question, Chen Zhao said. What problem? Please go ahead, Mr. Chen. Isn't that Amanda Didier known as the Son of Elements? But I didn't sense any other elemental magic other than the power of darkness in his body. He's the son of an elemental lord, so of course he's called an elemental son. Mr. Chen, Lila Gavich said matter-of-factly, do you have any other understanding of this title? No. Chen Zhao had thought that Amanda Didier should have other elements. In the end, Chen Zhao had beaten him to death, but Amanda Didier didn't have any other magic elements. Okay, one portion of Amanda Didier's flesh. I'll send it to you later, Chen Zhao said. Lila Gavich wanted to continue fighting. But he didn't have the capital to move Chen Zhao. He would use Lila Gavich's connections to exchange for the flesh of Amanda Didier that he dreamed of. It was hard to say who would win or lose. It could only be said that both sides were satisfied with the deal. But Chen Zhao had the upper hand. Because Chen Zhao was the supplier, he also had the absolute right to speak. Lila Gavich, on the other hand, was the demand side. What he had was a secondary resource. This meant that he didn't know if his resources were what Chen Zhao needed. he had to go through Qin Zhao's selection. Mr. Qin, what do you think about the conflict between the White Elves and the Dark Elves? No, Qin Zhao said directly. Lila Gavich wanted to get Qin Zhao and the supernatural organization to support him. But Qin Zhao wasn't interested. It doesn't matter to me who wins or loses. As long as your conflict doesn't involve ordinary people, I won't ask, Qin Zhao said calmly. But in Los Angeles, as long as your conflicts involve ordinary people, then the supernatural organization and I won't stay silent. Qin Zhao also had to show his attitude. He didn't want to be used by Lila Gavich. Plus, as an outsider, Qin Zhao couldn't be a judge for them. Lila Gavich was somewhat disappointed. He had wanted to pull Qin Zhao over to the Dark Elf side. That way, the barely balanced situation would immediately tilt to the Dark Elf side. After all, Qin Zhao had absolute power in L.A. and even in California. The White Elves might leave California because of Qin Zhao's existence. Unfortunately, Qin Zhao didn't plan on interfering. Chapter 1576. Mr. Qin, what do you plan to do next? We have our own plans. Qin Zhao refused to tell them more information. Actually, Qin Zhao had already planned to take the others out. But he was still wary of Lila Gavich. This wasn't the ground. Anything could happen. Who knew if he had some dirty tricks up his sleeves? Qin Zhao might not be afraid. But he couldn't guarantee the safety of the others either. For example, the earthquake earlier had separated them. Then, an accident had happened. Lila Gavich probably sensed Qin Zhao's wariness too. He didn't say anything. He nodded politely and bid farewell. At this moment, Moscow Prior ran over anxiously. Mr. Qin, I want to buy Amanda Didier's flesh too. Moscow's idea was simple. Since he couldn't stop the deal between Lila and Qin Zhao anymore. In that case, he couldn't fall behind others. Once Lila and Qin Zhao reached an agreement, he would definitely use Amanda Didier's flesh to evolve. Once Lila and Qin Zhao reached an agreement, he would definitely use Amanda Didier's flesh to evolve. In terms of High Elf bloodline, the White Elves obviously had more. And the White Elves had always had an absolute advantage in this aspect. But if Lila Gavich used Armand Dill's flesh, he would evolve into a more advanced High Elf bloodline. Then, the White Elves and Dark Elves might fall into a passive position in the conflict. Don't underestimate the influence of an elf with a High Elf bloodline. High Elves could suppress and motivate lesser elves because of their bloodline. If there was an all-out war and a High Elf was present, the difference in individual strength between the two sides would increase by at least 20%. This was something Moscow couldn't accept. So, he had no choice. He had to obtain Amanda Didier's flesh too. But things were different now. In the past, Amanda Didier had been sealed here. It wasn't easy for them, but it wasn't completely impossible. But now, Qin Zhao had killed Amanda Didier. If he wanted Amanda Didier's flesh, he had to get it from Qin Zhao. Forcefully taking it was clearly the stupidest thing to do. Trying to take Amanda Didier's flesh from Qin Zhao's hands by force was no different from suicide. It could even lead to the extinction of the White Elves. This could be seen from the battle between Qin Zhao and Amanda Didier. Qin Zhao was definitely not a kind person. What can you give me? Qin Zhao did not reject Mason's request. He did not belong to any faction of the White Elves or the Dark Elves. So if he could accept Lila Gavich's deal, he could also accept Moscow Pearl's deal. Whatever price that Dark Elf is willing to pay, I can also pay the same price. Mason didn't seem to know about Qin Zhao's wealth. He thought that Lila Gavich had just bribed him with money. He's not paying for it, Qin Zhao said indifferently. Plus, he can't give me a second price. Moscow Prior wasn't stupid. In fact, he was a rather outstanding leader among the White Elves. Thus, he quickly understood that the deal between Chen Zhao and Lila Gavik was probably some special condition or some kind of exchange of benefits. Mr. Chen, what do you need? Or do you have any requests? As long as I can do it, I won't refuse. Chen Zhao smiled and shook his head. I don't know what I lack. Mason Prior was the biggest farm owner in California. He should be very rich. He might even be richer than Chen Zhao. Regardless of whether it was Chen Zhao or Mason, most of their assets were actually valued assets. It was not that they really had that much money. In terms of cash flow, Chen Zhao felt that he should have more than Mason. Of course, if Chen Zhao was willing to sell his beer factory shares, he could definitely sell them for a sky-high price. Mason's expression was troubled. Mr. Chen, we can discuss. At the moment, he could not think of what he could offer that could attract Chen Zhao. When you think about what you can offer, come and talk to me. Chen Zhao turned around and walked over to the members of the association. Gaia, how are you? I'm a bit exhausted. I can't transform into a fire dragon for a while. Gaia was a bit out of breath. It seemed that she had been badly injured. Let's leave here first, Chen Zhao said. President, what exactly happened when I was unconscious? Jolanash still couldn't get it out of her mind. No one explained the situation to her. But Jolanash still felt that she might have caused it. They did not tell her because they did not want her to feel burdened. After all, Jolanash had almost killed Gaia and seriously injured her. Let's go out first, Chen Zhao said. It's not a big deal. Chen Zhao did not think that it was a bad thing. After all, this battle had made everyone realize where they were lacking. Anyway, it did not cause any serious or irreversible consequences. Chen Zhao planned to take them back the way they came. Just then, Lila Gavik walked over again. Mr. Chen. Is there anything else? Can I leave with you? Lila Gavik asked awkwardly. Why? If I leave from the way I came in, I'll die at the exit. Lila Gavik knew Moscow Prowl would never miss such an opportunity. Of course, you can say that I'm paying you. Sure. Chen Zhao nodded. Everyone had followed him down this time with the thought of treasure hunting. Now that they had not found the treasure, it would be good to earn some extra money. Seeing how close Lila Gavik was to Chen Zhao, Mason was displeased. But he did not show it in front of Chen Zhao. Instead, he left with Undine, Bao, and Bader. He was actually worried that Chen Zhao and Lila Gavik had reached some kind of agreement and left them all here. President, can you find the exit? Maybe I can try a new method, Chen Zhao said. Everyone looked at Chen Zhao curiously, wanting to know what the new method was. Chen Zhao closed his eyes. The dark lava under his feet began to spread in all directions. However, the dark lava did not spread in a flat way. Instead, it spread in lines. Countless lines extended out from under Chen Zhao's feet. If Chen Zhao's dark lava spread out completely, it would cover an area of around 10 square kilometers. However, 10 square kilometers was only a drop in the ocean compared to the underground world they had explored so far. If they turned the entire surface into lines, they would be able to explore much more. Chapter 1577. The lines formed by the black magma were black. The longest was more than 200 kilometers. Finally, Chen Zhao opened his eyes. Okay, I found the way. No one expected Chen Zhao to have this move. Speaking of which, the effect of Chen Zhao's move was indeed shocking. But to Chen Zhao, it was very useless. Unless Chen Zhao was deep in a labyrinth-like area. Otherwise, this move was basically useless. Of course, it was also a good way to find people. This time, they didn't take the same path they'd come from. They came to a lava lake. It wasn't the one Chen Zhao had seen before. Right at this moment, an extremely sharp and resonant cry of a bird rang out. Everyone looked up. There was a huge beast hiding on a rock hundreds of meters above the lava lake. It was a bird. A huge bird almost 100 meters long. Immortal bird. It was an immortal bird. The immortal bird suddenly spread its wings. It was originally hidden in the darkness and only its silhouette could be seen. However, the moment it spread its wings, its body ignited with golden flames. Lila Gavich stared at the huge immortal bird in shock. Too big. It was really too big. When the immortal bird spread its wings, it was even bigger than a regular adult dragon. Its target was clear, Chen Zhao and the others. Along with an earth-shattering heatwave, it swept over. That peerlessly terrifying aura made people feel terrified. But no one felt despair. Because Chen Zhao had already stood out. The dark magma suddenly swept over and bound the phoenix of immortality. However, the undying bird's body shook and the dark magma was shattered. The immortal bird shot at Chen Zhao like an arrow. When it was 60 meters away from Chen Zhao felt his world churn. Everyone, retreat! Chen Zhao yelled. This was the immortal bird's territory. As long as you touched it, you would feel like you were soaking in lava. None of the people behind him could resist such a domain. Chen Zhao shot out. The moment Chen Zhao charged into the immortal bird's territory, Chen Zhao felt like his skin was about to burn. It was even hotter than magma. Chen Zhao endured the pain and punched the immortal bird into the lava. Chen Zhao's body was already smoking. Everyone's hearts were pounding. Chen Zhao seemed to be injured. After all, he hadn't been injured in the previous battle with Amanda Didier. Just then, the immortal bird charged out of the lava. It bit Chen Zhao, who was in the air, and pulled him into the lava. Everyone cried out in surprise. All of a sudden, a pillar of lava burst forth. Chen Zhao charged out of the lava. His skin was like heated metal, glowing red. Even though Chen Zhao could resist the heat of the lava, fighting in it wasn't the best choice. The lava was the phoenix's main battlefield. Under the magma, the immortal bird's huge body was moving rapidly. He could vaguely see the phoenix's figure. Although the undying bird was a bird, its swimming speed in the lava wasn't inferior to that of a fish. Fighting the undying bird in such an environment was definitely not a good choice. Chen Zhao used the clone and Dharma return again. The undying bird rushed out of the magma once again, but this time, its eyes directly shot out red rays. Chen Zhao's chest was pierced. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Chen Zhao also didn't expect the undying bird to have this move. It wasn't that Chen Zhao had never met an opponent that could shoot rays. However, their penetrative power wasn't as strong as the undying bird's red rays. Chen Zhao looked at his pierced chest. Wounds were harder to heal than normal physical injuries. Just then, the undying bird opened its mouth and bit at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao suddenly raised his hand and grabbed the undying bird's beak. Lava spewed out of its beak. Chen Zhao took out the black trident and stabbed it into its beak. The undying bird struggled and fell into the lava with Chen Zhao. A while later, Chen Zhao came back with the undying bird's corpse. Everyone was shaken to the core. They knew that Chen Zhao was extremely powerful. However, the undying bird's terror also made them shudder. The undying bird's body started burning wildly. Chen Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Was it going to be reborn? No, he couldn't let it be reborn. Chen Zhao poured the water stored in his spatial ring into the undying bird's mouth. The undying bird, which should have been dead, actually moved again. Its body struggled frantically. The flames on its body weakened greatly too. Green smoke kept coming out. Chen Zhao pressed down on the undying bird's head. Finally, the flames were extinguished. Its golden body eventually turned dark red. His wings, which were originally shiny, were now dim and lifeless. Undying bird. Great, undying bird. Ruan Faxben exclaimed in surprise. Without a doubt, he would have a chance to get the materials from the undying bird when he returned. Just like the dragons, the undying bird was also full of treasures. Chen Zhao had forced Ruan Faxben to join the supernatural organization. Even if he was kicked out now, he wouldn't leave. No organization in the world could provide him with such abundant and precious magic materials. Why had he cheated in the past? It was all to earn magic materials for his alchemy research and experiments. But now, he didn't need to do that. He could get the most precious magic materials in the supernatural organization. President, are your wounds okay? I'm fine. Chen Zhao grinned. It was painful, but it wasn't too big of an impact. The scorching fire elements were still attached to the wound, which affected its self-healing speed. But it couldn't really stop Chen Zhao from healing. But this lava lake is too big. President, how do we go over? The lava lake was at least 12 square kilometers. If Gaia wasn't injured, she could carry him over. But now, she was injured and couldn't transform. Actually, it wasn't that she couldn't transform at all, but they clearly didn't want to make Gaia's injuries worse. Chen Zhao looked at the entire lava lake. The dark lava started spreading along the walls and turned into a black and red plank road. Let's walk over it. Chen Zhao realized that his control of the dark lava had greatly increased after expanding 10 times. At first, everyone was still a bit scared. They weren't sure if they would sink in. But soon, they realized that they were worried too much. Unless Chen Zhao wanted to harm them, nothing would happen to them on the dark lava. 30 minutes later, everyone walked across the plank road and finally reached the other side. There are still some spider demons ahead. We can get rid of them later and earn some extra money. Chapter 1578. The battle was over. The ground was covered in spider corpses. Everyone began to collect the arachne corpses. Lila Gage was confused. He didn't understand what the supernatural organization was doing. However, it could be seen from this battle. Chen Zhao wasn't the only one in the organization. Everyone in the team had decent combat ability. After the battle, everyone performed very well. Not everyone had shown their power in the battle against Jolanash. No one dared to move when they faced Armand Didier. But that was because he was too strong. Facing these spider corpses was their true power. Mr. Chen, what's the use of these spider corpses? They're delicious. Their corpses also contain a substance called earth essence. It can slightly increase a spiritualist's constitution and magic power. Lila Gage's heart jumped. Are you selling this earth essence? Depends, Chen Zhao said indifferently. He didn't answer Lila Gage immediately. It was mainly because Chen Zhao didn't have much money. A one-time sale wouldn't be of much value to him and the organization. How much could Lila Gage pay? A few $100,000 or a few million. He might as well keep it for his own people. Lila Gage might not be interested in the spider corpses. He actually wanted to use this as an excuse to have a deeper connection with Qin Zhao and the supernatural organization. As long as there were benefits, it would be a guarantee for the Dark Elves. Qin Zhao had said that he definitely wouldn't get involved in the conflict between the White Elves and the Dark Elves. But in reality, as long as there were benefits and relationships, people couldn't be absolutely neutral. They didn't encounter any more trouble later on. Occasionally, one or two underground monsters would appear out of nowhere, but they were quickly cut down. Qin Zhao had to collect all of Ruan Faxi's monsters. He wasn't sure if every monster's corpse would be useful. But he couldn't waste them. He wanted to study them and see which ones were useful. The journey could be said to be calm and uneventful. But it really wasn't a short journey and it wasn't easy to walk. They walked for at least 10 hours. They finally arrived at the first underground lake. Everyone heaved a long sigh of relief. Next, they rested where they were, ate, and drank. After dilly-dallying for 2 to 3 hours, they finally returned home. However, the entrance to the underground river was easy to enter but hard to exit. Qin Zhao could only hold the black trident and control the water to send everyone out. Wow, this is a great place. I want to buy this place. Lila Gevich floated on the water and looked at the beautiful surroundings of Mirror Lake. Everyone looked at Lila Gevich. Lila Gage noticed that everyone was looking at her strangely. What happened? Lila Gavich asked in confusion. I'm going to build a villa over there. I'd be honored if you could visit my house in the future. I don't think you can afford it. Why? Because this is the president's home. Jalanash said, but the typhoon last time destroyed his house, but he's planning to rebuild it. If you want to force him, you'd better think about whether the president will agree. Pretend I didn't say anything. Lila Gage decisively admitted defeat. He couldn't beat Qin Zhao and didn't have as much wealth as Qin Zhao. He didn't want to have a conflict with Qin Zhao at all. A while later, Qin Zhao also emerged from the water. The air outside was fresher than underground. Everyone was greedily breathing in the air outside. Everyone returned to the shore. Mr. Chen, Lila Gage said, leave your contact number. Qin Zhao left Lila Gavich a phone number. Let's go back to the association too. Qin Zhao wasn't really happy about the underground exploration. It was mainly because Engelit had lost an arm. It was also because of Moore, which made Moore feel very guilty. Although Engelit had been comforting Moore. He also said that Moore could stop working at the insurance company. But Moore could tell that Engelit was comforting him. The people in the association heard that they were back and were all waiting in the building. Everyone got out of the car. West immediately walked up to them. Engelit, your arm, it was an accident, Engelit said, smiling honestly. Move aside, Qin Zhao said. Everyone looked at Qin Zhao, not knowing what he was going to do. Qin Zhao took out the huge body of the phoenix. Everyone who hadn't gone underground was shocked. Everyone, work hard today and cut up the phoenix's body, Qin Zhao said. At the same time, extract the essence of the earth from the phoenix's body. Back then, Qin Zhao had absorbed the phoenix's earth essence and achieved clear sky and earth perfection. Therefore, Qin Zhao wanted to leave a backup plan for the association in case anyone reached this step in the future. If anyone reached this step in the future, they could use the earth essence. The phoenix from last time was more than 10 times weaker than this one. Qin Zhao didn't know how much earth essence he could extract from the phoenix. Qin Zhao stated his intentions. Everyone's eyes lit up. However, even the strongest Gaia was worlds apart from clear sky and earth perfection. Don't waste the undying bird's flesh, bones, and feathers. Share some of the undying bird's flesh with everyone. You can keep it for yourselves or bring it back for your family. However, if you bring it back for your family, don't eat too much. Ordinary people can't eat too much. But the phoenix's body was too big. Chen Zhao had to move the immortal bird's body to the man-made lake. Even so, the headquarters still reeked of blood. Everyone in the headquarters came out to help. A few normal people set up a barbecue rack and helped them cook. These normal people were the subordinates of the gang leader, Seely Dirk. They were basically completely integrated into the association now. Although Chen Zhao had said that he would imprison them for life, they were actually outer members now. It would be fine if Chen Zhao had killed them on the spot, but it wasn't so easy to imprison them forever. After a while, apart from some restrictions, they still had a lot of space to move around. They were also given salaries. At least, it was more than what they could earn outside. It was also more stable. Moreover, after coming into contact with him for a long time, they were now at ease with their duties. Of course, the main reason was that they didn't dare to go against Chen Zhao. In the association, Chen Zhao was truly like a demon king. Chapter 1579. Henry was probably the weakest in the association. Back then, he'd followed Seely to the association and ended up becoming Gaia's sparring partner. Then, he became Klaus and the Lightning Team's sparring partner. But ever since he'd awakened his bloodline, his status had risen. However, the power of his bloodline was still something that no one could accept. Chen Zhao had even forbidden him from using it in the headquarters. But Henry was quite happy about it. After all, to him, it was a superpower. Actually, his attack power wasn't that great. But it wasn't like he didn't have any abilities. If he farted, he could pollute an area of 1,000 meters. He could make normal people within range lose their ability to fight. He could also ignite them and set them on fire. Normally, he could only go to the trial tower and harm the monsters there. However, he didn't seem to find a way to increase his power. After awakening, his power hadn't increased much. Every time he saw Chen Zhao bring people to carry out this mission or that mission, he was envious. But his power was still not up to standard. This made him very anxious. The association had also given him many benefits. Henry, take this. See if it can increase your power. Chen Zhao tossed a thumb-sized bottle to Henry. It contained the essence of the earth. There wasn't a lot of it. Henry put it away carefully. These things couldn't be bought outside. The group found a few cushions and placed them under the phoenix's body. They didn't want to waste the phoenix's blood. But the blood still seeped out. The shore of the artificial lake was already dyed red. The bright red lake water was still seeping out. There weren't many fish in the lake. It was originally an artificial lake, but then it was connected to a river. West had also raised some fish. But the association kept harming the lake every now and then. For example, Chen Zhao would throw a grenade into the lake from time to time. As a result, there weren't many fish in the lake. However, there were still some fish that came after smelling the fishy smell. The phoenix's blood was drained first and then its feathers were plucked. Other people really couldn't do the job of plucking hair. Only Gaia, Chen Zhao, Klaus, and the Lightning Team could do it. Without a certain level of power, they couldn't pluck the phoenix's feathers. In that case, it would be a huge project. At this time, Feilai brought the two kids to the headquarters. There was also a group of pets, all of them came. Feilai came because of Chen Zhao's call. But when she saw the scene, she lost interest and went to her room. Little Jerlin and little Larissa, on the other hand, came to watch the show excitedly. But what attracted them the most was the roast meat. The smell of barbecued meat was very fragrant, and it completely washed away the smell of blood. Little Jerlin walked to the barbecue rack, and someone immediately cut off a small piece of meat for her. Then little Jerlin ran away happily. Little Larissa pouted. She wanted to eat too. Recently, Chen Zhao and Fei Lai had fed her some food that was easier to digest. It was just that the barbecued meat was hard to digest, so she had never eaten it before. Chen Zhao looked at little Larissa, who was sitting on Princess. Henry, give me a small piece of meat and mince it for my daughter. Also, give Princess a big piece too. Not far away, Abito snuck behind the undying bird. It opened its mouth and bit the undying bird's butt. No one cared about him. Ruan Faxi was collecting the blood and feathers of the undying bird. Everyone in the association couldn't stop. Even Aduz, his old arms and legs, was helping from the side. Chen Zhao even wanted to summon the demon army to help. The undying bird that had been stripped of its feathers was now a bald chicken. It didn't look as majestic as when it was alive anymore. Luong Faxi had expended a great deal of effort. He dug out the undying bird's 2 eyeballs. The 2 eyeballs were like 2 huge red pearls. They didn't look like they were made of flesh and blood. They were more like inorganic matter. President, these eyeballs are good stuff. Chen Zhao looked at the 2 eyeballs. They probably weighed more than 100 kilograms. They shone with a demonic red light and indeed had a breathtaking beauty. Just then, little Jerlin ran over again. Dad, I want this. Little Jerlin always picked good stuff. Then I'll give you one. Ruan Faxi was a bit reluctant, but he didn't say anything. Say what? You're saying that these 2 phoenixes' eyeballs can't be used as toys for little Jerlin? Chen Zhao had killed the undying bird. Why couldn't he? Chen Zhao's pets also ate and drank here. Basin soared in the air and landed from time to time to pick up a piece of meat. After the undying bird was cut up, everyone started extracting the earth essence in the flesh. They extracted at least 30 liters of golden earth essence. The quality was even purer than the big spider's earth essence. The earth essence couldn't be shared with anyone. Chen Zhao and West thought that they'd share it with whoever really needed it. Giving them the high-purity earth essence now was too much of a waste. They worked from noon until 3 or 4 in the morning. Everyone was exhausted. Finally, they finished cutting up the undying bird and extracting the essence. Chen Zhao started checking Angelite's injuries. Angelite's arm had been cut off by the same carving. Almost a day had passed, but there was still residual magic power in Angelite's wound. However, Chen Zhao realized that the dark magma could absorb the magic power. West, I'll concoct a potion for you in the next few days. It can help you regrow your limbs, but I'm afraid you won't be able to appear in front of your family or work at your insurance company for the time being. President, can my arm grow back? No problem. Chen Zhao wasn't worried. Back then, Rasva's grandson Daniel's leg had been bitten off by a shark. A potion made from a perfect demonic crystal could make his leg grow back. After almost 2 years of research, Chen Zhao had a deeper understanding of demonic crystals. Hearing this, Engelite heaved a sigh of relief. After all, losing an arm was a big blow to him. Whether it was in life or in battle, losing an arm would cause a lot of inconveniences. President, how long will it take? About 2 weeks. Looks like I'll have to call my family, Engelite said. What about the company you work for? No company allows employees to be absent for 2 weeks without any reason. Engelite didn't care much about his job. To him, selling insurance was just a part-time job. The supernatural organization paid him 10 times more than what he earned from selling insurance. Moreover, selling insurance took up too much of his time. Now, he had found a justifiable reason to quit that job. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Godly Emperor mobile version. Chapter 1580. To be honest, Chen Zhao was speechless about the divorce rate in America. There were so many people in the association, except for those who were not married. Of those who had families and businesses, only Engelite had a wife and children by his side. For example, West and Adus had basically been divorced for decades. Apparently, West had been married 3 times. For example, Klaus had been married twice. "Hey, Ulisa, I'm going out of town and can't go home." Engelite called his wife. "Engelite, can't you see what time it is?" Engelite's wife, Ulisa, complained. "Aw, sorry. I'm in China now. I forgot about the time difference." "China? You're in China?" "Yes. But your passport is still at home. How did you go to China?" Engelite really wanted to slap himself in the face. He had gone too far. He did not know how to end it now. "Engelite, tell me the truth. Do you have a woman outside?" Ulisa asked suspiciously. To be honest, Ulisa had always been suspicious of Engelite. Because Engelite often did not go home after work. She had called his insurance company several times, but they all said that Engelite was not at the office. But Engelite did not go home either. For example, Engelite had said that he was going on a business trip for 3 days. Then she called Engelite's company. She found that Engelite was not going on a business trip. Instead, he had asked for a 3-day leave. No, definitely not, Engelite said quickly. He did not know how to explain it. "Then where are you now?" Ulisa questioned. I really have something to do. I can't go home." "If you don't have another woman, then go home immediately." It was no wonder that Engelite's wife was like this. Engelite's behavior was too abnormal. Moreover, it was not just once or twice. Engelite could not say it out loud. "I really can't go home now. If you don't come back, we'll get a divorce." "What?" "No, I really didn't cheat," Engelite defended himself. But how could he explain it? There was no proof. Moreover, he himself was full of doubts, so he really couldn't explain himself. "If you don't appear in front of me before the sun sets tomorrow, then we will divorce." Engelite's brain was about to explode. Divorce? Engelite put down the phone and quickly found Jolig. "Jolig, do you have a way to install a prosthetic leg for me?" "It's best if it's a simulation," Engelite said. Jolig was busy at the slaughterhouse. He looked back at Engelite. "Didn't the president say that he could help you regrow your arm? Why do you still want artificial limbs?" "I want to go back to see my wife, or she will divorce me. She thinks I have an affair." "Oh, you don't." Jolig teased. "What time is it now? Hurry up and think of a way for me. It's not difficult to make an artificial limb, but in such a short time, it's just an empty shell at most. Go find Ruan and ask him to come over and make a magic artificial limb with me. It can temporarily serve as your arm." "Okay, I'll go now." Engelite anxiously ran to find Ruan Faxburn. Actually, Ruan Faxburn refused. After all, this was a waste of time for him. However, Engelite brought Chen Zhao out. Ruan Faxburn agreed without hesitation. If he really told Chen Zhao and Chen Zhao showed up, it would be ugly. Ruan Faxburn was indeed a famous alchemist. However, his value was to solve problems for the people of the society. 7 or 8 hours later, Jolig and Ruan Faxburn worked together and finally made a magic artificial limb. Then, Engelit rushed home anxiously to put out the fire. Chen Zhao heard about this. However, he could not do anything about it. As for whether Engelit could successfully put out the fire, it was hard to say. However, if Engelit really divorced his wife, Engelit would probably hate more for the rest of his life. At noon the next day, Chen Zhao and Fei Lai brought the whole family home. Ever since little Jerlin obtained the Eye of the Phoenix, she had abandoned the undying skull Hanks. However, little Larissa had inherited her sister's hobby. She grabbed Hanks and started gnawing again. "My dear master," Hanks said in despair. "Is gnawing on skulls an inherited hobby in your family?" "It means you still have value," Chen Zhao said calmly. The underling ran over and handed Chen Zhao a glass of juice. At the same time, it said, "Master, I want to plant some apples in the villa. Can I?" "Yes, go." Chen Zhao waved his hand. "But don't destroy the villa's design." Chen Zhao picked up Hanks's head. "At least I gave you information about Treasure Island," Hank said unhappily. "But the information you provided is useless. Until now, I haven't even seen a shadow of Treasure Island." "It's not my fault," Hanks argued. "No, to me, it's your fault." "That's not fair. I'm the master. You're talking about fairness with me." "Fine, master, I was wrong." Yeah. Little Larissa pulled Chen Zhao's leg and reached out to grab it. She seemed to want Hanks's head. "Take it." Chen Zhao tossed Hanks's head to little Larissa. Chen Zhao walked to the elevator and went down to the beach. At home, Chen Zhao rarely jumped down. Especially in front of little Jerlin and Larissa. It would be a bad example for them. As soon as Chen Zhao entered the water, the 5 generals and the dolphin family swam to him. The 5 generals and the dolphin family were similar to dogs. They were very close to their masters. Once they recognized their masters, they would be very clingy. Chen Zhao would go into the water to play with them whenever he was free. Chen Zhao started to dive into the deep water. The 5 generals and the dolphin family followed closely. Occasionally, the dolphin would toss a fish before Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao found the giant clam. The giant clam had moved more than 100 meters from its previous position. Chen Zhao had to catch it again every time. The giant clam wasn't like a shark or dolphin with a brain. It didn't have a brain, so Chen Zhao couldn't subdue it and make it recognize him as its master. However, Chen Zhao felt that the giant clam was something good, so he treated it as his private collection. He also had the 5 generals and the dolphin family watch the giant clam so that it couldn't escape from its territory. Chapter 1581. As soon as Chen Zhao came out of the sea and reached the shore, he saw a car stop on the road above the beach. Then 5 or 6 young men and women got out of the car. Most of them were wearing swimsuits. "Wow, it's so beautiful here. How come I didn't know there was such a beautiful beach in the past?" A few girls were shouting excitedly. Chen Zhao frowned. He was annoyed to see the young people get out of the beach directly. Chen Zhao came to the beach. "Hey, this is private land. You better leave." The young men who came down froze for a moment. Just then, a tall guy walked out. He was a head taller than Chen Zhao and only wore a pair of boxers. The young man walked up to Chen Zhao and looked down at him. "Ha! Asian, what right do you have to say this is private land? There's no notice board here." Chen Zhao raised his head and looked at the young man. "I'll say it again. This is private land," Chen Zhao repeated. "What if I don't leave?" The tall guy looked at Chen Zhao mockingly. Karan, ignore him, a blonde girl said. Let's play. The girls were all wearing swimsuits. To be honest, if they'd told Chen Zhao nicely, he might not have chased them away. The boys and girls seemed to be sure that Chen Zhao couldn't do anything to them. They walked past Chen Zhao and started playing. What was worse was that they started eating and drinking without restraint on the beach. There was beer, drinks, and all sorts of packaged snacks. After eating, they would throw their trash on the beach. All of these actions stimulated Chen Zhao's nerves. Just then, they started going into the water. Chen Zhao's lips curled into a smile. Suddenly, a wave pushed them away from the shore. Before they could react, a shark fin blocked their way. Ah! Shark! 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 What? Ah! Help! The 5 tiger generals had already blocked their way back to the shore. The sea kept pushing them into the deep water. Chen Zhao watched as the young people flopped around in the water in panic. Their faces were filled with evil smiles. Help! Sir! Help! Chen Zhao walked to the shallow water but didn't go in. He always had a smile on his face as he looked at those young people with a strong desire to live. No matter which way they swam, the water would knock them over. Not only did the 5 tiger generals block their way, but they also kept dragging them into the water. However, Chen Zhao didn't plan on killing them. He just wanted to teach them an unforgettable lesson. No one knew when little Jerlin had run to the beach. Dad, what are you doing? What happened to those brothers and sisters? No, nothing, Chen Zhao said indifferently. At this time, the 5 tiger generals left. Chen Zhao didn't control the water anymore and let them go ashore. The first to come ashore was the big man called Colin. However, just as he reached the shore, a wave came from behind and slammed him onto the beach. Chen Zhao walked up to Colin and squatted down. I told you, this is private property. Without my permission, you can easily die here. The young men behind him also escaped to the beach one after another. You better take the trash away. At this moment, Colin stood up again. He seemed to have recovered. He was looking at Chen Zhao in annoyance. What if I don't? With a smile, Chen Zhao looked at the young men. I don't just have sharks here. Roar! Princess crawled out of the bushes. Seeing Princess' terrifying body, everyone peed their pants in fear. Bear, brown bear, Chen Zhao kept smiling. Looking at the panicked young men. Are you willing to take the trash away now? You trash. You raised this bear. If you dare let it hurt us, you'll go to jail. Colin's aura had already weakened. His voice was also much softer. Do you know about the fortress agreement? This is my territory and I've already ordered you to leave. If you want to stay, then stay forever. Chen Zhao sneered. Don't think I don't know what the fortress agreement is. I'm a law student. I know very well that as long as we don't do anything threatening, the agreement won't take effect, Colin said, pretending to be calm. Is that so? But what if you all die here? Colin suddenly had the urge to do something. He looked at Chen Zhao and then at little Jerlin beside him. Suddenly, Colin charged at Chen Zhao and reached out to pinch him. Poof! Chen Zhao didn't give him the chance. He broke a few of Colin's ribs with one punch. Ah! The girls screamed. The other 3 boys ran at Chen Zhao at the same time. They looked like they were going to attack Chen Zhao or snatch Colin back. However, Chen Zhao thought that they were going to attack him. Without any explanation, Chen Zhao knocked them all down. The 3 girls were even more terrified. They'd thought that Chen Zhao had a medium build and was Asian. So, they thought that Chen Zhao was easy to bully. They didn't think that Qin Zhao not only had an evil beast at home but was also so skilled. The four boys were all beaten to the ground. You have two choices now. Be eaten by my pets or take the trash away, including these four. The girls didn't have the courage to say no. Under the double threat of Qin Zhao and Princess, they could only pick up the trash on the beach in fear. Then, they helped the four boys to the ground and carefully escaped. Don't step on the grass. There are stairs there. Qin Zhao yelled. Dad, you're amazing. Jerlin looked at Qin Zhao, her eyes shining. Yes, of course. Qin Zhao picked up Jerlin, a proud expression on his face. Nothing was happier than being praised by one's own daughter. Dad, Mom, are you getting a divorce? Ceylon looked at her arguing parents. Of course not. Smiling apologetically, Ingalit glanced at his wife. Amy tried to control her emotions. She didn't want to argue with Ingalit in front of her 10-year-old daughter. However, she still felt that Ingalit had another woman outside. This was something no woman could tolerate. Divorce was obviously the last choice. If she didn't have to, she didn't want this to happen. First, Ingalit had confessed to her. However, Ingalit refused to admit it no matter what. This was what she was most angry about. Just then, Angelite's phone rang. Mr. Ingalit. Your son Colin is in the hospital right now. Chapter 1582. Ingalit froze for a moment and turned to his wife, Amy. Kellen is in the hospital. Amy took a few deep breaths. What happened? I don't know. Let's go to the hospital first. They didn't delay and Ceylon also went to the hospital. Brother. Ceylon and her brother's relationship was quite harmonious. Ingalit and Amy entered the ward and saw their son wrapped in gauze. They both looked worried and distressed. However, Ingalit played the role of a strict father and immediately said, Kellen, I heard that you were beaten up by someone. What happened? What did you do outside? Amy was still worried about her son's injury. Hearing Angelite's words, she suddenly showed a bit of anger. Ingalit, why do you think this is Kellen's fault? Why can't someone else attack Kellen? Amy, don't be unreasonable. I just want to figure out what's going on. You're saying I'm unreasonable? Why don't you say you have a woman outside? I don't. No. Then why is it that your whereabouts are always so unpredictable? Also, you lied to me that you went abroad. I have my own reasons. Angelite's tone suddenly weakened. Then explain clearly. Don't tell me you're a secret agent and can't let your family know. Amy sneered. She knew Ingalit too well. They could be considered childhood sweethearts. When Ingalit was in elementary school, he was bullied but didn't dare to fight back. He was cowardly and introverted. It was already unexpected that he would become an insurance salesman. In Amy's eyes, Ingalit had always been a cowardly man. In fact, Ingalit acted like that in front of his wife at home to maintain his marriage. Contrary to his personality, Amy was strong-willed and impulsive. And she was too opinionated. Even too confident. As long as it was a fact, she would take it as the truth. Between a husband and wife, one of them always needed to compromise. But now Amy was sure that Ingalit had an affair. What she wanted now was for Ingalit to confess to her. Stop arguing. Colin's mood became even more unhappy. If you want to argue, then leave my ward. Someone had broken several ribs in his chest. However, he and his friend had already made a promise. This matter must not be made public. Because they were the ones at fault. Moreover, the other party seemed to be very rich. He didn't want any trouble. Especially if he caused trouble for his family. Being beaten up by others was already depressing enough. Now, she had to listen to her parents arguing in her hospital room. This made him even more frustrated. To call on, today was definitely the darkest day of his life. He had lost face in front of the girl he liked. Now in the hospital, and enduring the parents' quarrel. If you want a divorce, you'd better be straightforward. As soon as he said this, the wind and clouds changed color. You also think we should get a divorce? Amy looked at Colin. Wait. That's not what I meant. Colin immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing. Engelite was like a volcano that was about to erupt. If you're still not awake, then you better shut up. You don't need to get involved in my business with your mother. He felt that he was the one who was wrong the most. He clearly hadn't done anything wrong. But he had to be suspected by Amy. But Amy felt that she was the one who was wrong the most. Why can't Colin say it? He's a part of the family, so he has the right, Amy said. Then are you really going to divorce me? As long as you confess, I'll consider forgiving you. I told you, I didn't cheat. Damn it, I didn't cheat. Engelite finally exploded. Amy's face was livid. Seems like you still don't want to confess. Fine, then you can live with that bitch. I wish you happiness. With that, Amy pulled Ceylon away. Where are you going? Engelite hurriedly pulled Amy back. Ceylon and I are going to stay at my parents' for a while, Amy said. Engelite hesitated and finally let go. We both need to calm down. If they continued to argue, it would only cause both sides to lose control of their emotions and worsen the situation. Plus, Amy's parents lived in San Jose, the third largest city in California. Even if they drove, it would only take a few hours. Mom, Dad, don't divorce. Ceylon looked at her parents with tears in her eyes. Amy glanced at her daughter and didn't say anything. She pulled her out of the room. Engelite slumped on the chair in the room. Dad, did you really have an affair? No, I said I didn't. Engelite tried his best to defend himself. But even his son. He was full of suspicion towards him. Not to mention Amy. I didn't do anything wrong to your mother. I'm innocent. Then why did Mom say you had an affair? Colin was already an adult. He had his own knowledge and worldview. He knew how dirty the adult world was. Of course, as a son, he didn't want his parents to divorce. Even if he didn't care, his sister Ceylon was only 10. She might not be able to take this kind of damage. Mom, don't divorce Dad, okay? Ceylon sat in the back of the car and begged her mother. Amy's mind was in a mess as she drove in silence. When they got home, Amy started packing. Then she left with Ceylon. She argued with Engelite the whole day. After a few hours of driving, Amy was both mentally and physically exhausted. Mom, Ceylon and I are almost home. Amy dialed her mother's number. Okay, your father and I prepared a delicious dinner to welcome you and my cute granddaughter. When the car arrived at her mother's house, her mother and father were standing in front of the door. Mom, Dad. Amy walked in front of her parents and hugged them affectionately. Where's Ceylon? Why isn't she getting out? Amy's parents asked. She seems to be asleep. Amy opened the back door. Ceylon, you're home, don't you want to see your grandpa and grandma? But Ceylon was still lying in the back. Ceylon. Amy walked up and patted Ceylon's cheek. Still no reaction. Ceylon. Amy seemed to realize that there was something wrong with her daughter. What's wrong with Ceylon? I can't wake her up. Amy said worriedly. Let me see. Amy's mother walked up and tested the temperature of Ceylon's forehead. It's normal. Amy's mother wasn't too sure. Take Ceylon to the hospital first. Amy's father said. Chapter 1583. How's my daughter? Doctor, calm, the doctor said. She doesn't have any injuries, but she lost control of her emotions and sealed herself off. That's why she's in a coma. Then what can I do to wake her up? Amy's heart was heavy. She suddenly realized that her previous actions were indeed very inappropriate. She didn't care about her daughter's feelings at all. She kept arguing with Engelit in front of her daughter. That was why her daughter lost control of her emotions. Her daughter seemed to be very similar to Engelit. When she was hurt, she wouldn't make a fuss. Instead, she would keep it to herself and stay silent. But she wasn't Engelit. She was still a child. Amy should have noticed it long ago. But she hadn't gone to see Ceylon on the way. Amy blamed herself even more. She needs to wake up on her own, the doctor said. Currently, there's no medical treatment that can wake her up. Is there no way at all? Sorry. The doctor shook his head and turned to leave. Amy's parents were also very worried. Their love for their granddaughter was no less than Amy's. Amy, should we inform Engelit? No. Hearing Engelit, Amy was furious again. That asterisk shoal. It's all because of him that Ceylon got sick. But a moment later, Amy softened again. I'll call him, Amy said with a sigh. After hearing the news, Engelit immediately rushed to San Jose. When he arrived at the hospital, it was already 2 in the morning. Amy stared at Engelit with a complicated expression. But neither Engelit nor Amy had the time to quarrel with him. Amy, how's Ceylon? Her situation isn't good. The doctor said that she doesn't have any illnesses, but because of us, she's sealed herself off. Then what can we do? Engelit asked. The doctor can't do anything either, Amy said. Ceylon's like a vegetable now. Engelite's expression grew even more terrible. He wanted to scold Amy, but he swallowed his words in the end. He didn't want their relationship to worsen. Engelit thought of Qin Zhao. Right now, he didn't know what to do either. He could only look for Qin Zhao. I'll make a call. Maybe that person can cure our daughter, Engelit said. You know a doctor? Yes. English nodded. A previous client. Before. Have you resigned from the insurance company? Amy, I don't want to talk about it. I admit that I'm hiding something from you, but I can assure you that it's not what you think. I didn't cheat. Even with Engelite's promise, Lin Fan was not a match for Engelit. However, this kind of thing couldn't be proven with just a guarantee. If Engelit couldn't prove it, Amy wouldn't be able to find him. Women are paranoid. Engelit couldn't care less about the time. Walking to the window, she took out her phone and called Qin Zhao. Hello. Engelit, tell me, what's the matter? I believe you must have something to do to call me at this time. President, something happened to my daughter. She's unconscious in the hospital. I need your help, Engelit said. Give me the address. Qin Zhao stopped complaining about Engelit disturbing him. In San Jose, Moreau Hospital. Okay, got it, Qin Zhao said. I'll go to the airport now. Okay, I'll wait for you at the hospital. After hanging up, Engelit heaved a long sigh of relief. In the association, Qin Zhao gave everyone a reassuring feeling. It wasn't just during battles. Chen Zhao also gave them a sense of security in other aspects. How is it? Did your friend agree? Yes, he's coming from LA now. Engelite nodded. Amy was confused. Since when did Engelite know such a friend? Judging from his expression, Engelite seemed to have relaxed after the call. It seemed that Engelite trusted this friend a lot. Although Chen Zhao had left immediately, he only waited for 3 hours at the airport. He couldn't rush to the airport even if he wanted to. He couldn't just fly there. The risk of flying over was too great. With the American military's radar, they could definitely find UFOs. After all, if he flew at high speed, he would generate heat. He couldn't avoid the military radar. Chen Zhao didn't want to be targeted by the military. At 8 in the morning, Chen Zhao finally arrived at Moreau Hospital in San Jose. Engelite brought Chen Zhao to the ward. Outside the ward, Amy hadn't slept the entire night. Although her face was haggard, she still couldn't sleep. Hello, I'm Angelite's friend, Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao introduced himself. Hello, Mr. Chen. Hello, Mr. Chen. Amy, Mr. Chen is a medical professor at UCLA. He's also a neurologist. He's awakened people in a vegetative state before. Engelite added a few buffs to Chen Zhao. As expected, after hearing Angelite's introduction, Amy perked up. Mr. Chen, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome. I'm friends with Engelite, Chen Zhao said, smiling. Chen Zhao smiled. Take me to see your child now. Amy and Engelite brought Chen Zhao into the ward. When Chen Zhao saw Ceylon lying on the bed, his first thought was that her soul was complete and stable. From the outside, he didn't notice anything wrong with her body. Of course, Chen Zhao had already heard about Cisco's condition from Engelite before this. Chen Zhao went up to examine Ceylon. The situation wasn't good, because Chen Zhao didn't find anything wrong with Ceylon after examining her. Amy kept looking at Chen Zhao in disbelief. She wanted to hear good news from Chen Zhao. After the examination, Chen Zhao couldn't wait to ask about Ceylon's condition. Mr. Chen, how's my daughter? It's only a preliminary examination right now, Chen Zhao said. I need to discuss it with my team. Hearing that, Angelite's heart skipped a beat. Chen Zhao didn't have a medical team. Chen Zhao had always been a loner. When can you give me an answer, Mr. Chen? I'll give you an answer today. But the doctors in this hospital only took an hour to give an answer. So they can't wake your daughter up, Chen Zhao said. Amy froze, then she was overjoyed. Mr. Chen, are you saying that you have a way to wake my daughter up? I can only say that it's very likely, but I can't guarantee it. Chapter 1584. Angelite's mood was the complete opposite of Amy's. Chen Zhao clearly didn't tell Amy everything. Chen Zhao gave Engelite a look. Engelite followed Chen Zhao out. President, how's Ceylon? To be honest, I can't do anything. What? Even you can't do anything. But when I checked just now, I realized that your daughter is more like sleeping than in a vegetative state, Chen Zhao said. As for falling asleep, don't you think there's someone more authoritative than me in the association? Chen Zhao asked. Engelite suddenly looked up. Norma. Yes, Norma. Chen Zhao nodded. I'll call her over now. Amy watched Chen Zhao and Angelite's conversation not far away. She'd relaxed slightly because of Chen Zhao's words. But she still couldn't truly calm down. She was always on edge. Engelite came over and told her to rest. But Amy still couldn't relax. Chen Zhao stood behind Amy. Miss Amy, Amy turned her head and Chen Zhao suddenly snapped his fingers. Sleep. Chen Zhao hadn't used the Banshee's charm in a long time. But as his power increased, the Banshee's charm didn't regress. Instead, it became easier to use. Amy's vision darkened and she collapsed. Enrich reacted quickly and caught Amy. Take your wife back to her place to rest. I'll come with Norma. Enrich thought for a moment and then nodded. Norma came quickly as well. She arrived 3 hours later. Enrich also returned to the hospital. President Enrich, what's the situation now? Norma asked. Enrich explained the situation to Norma. Okay, I understand. I'll try to enter Norma's dream and wake her up. However, when the three of them entered the ward, Norma stopped in her tracks. Huh? What's wrong? Enrich, your daughter seems to have been invaded by a nightmare. Chen Zhao and Enrich glanced at each other in astonishment. They hadn't discovered Ceylon's true situation. Norma had the bloodline of a shapeshifter, so she immediately realized that something was wrong. What should we do? Chen Zhao asked. Are you confident? I wonder how strong this shapeshifter is. Norma said, President, it's best if you enter her dream with me. I might not be able to defeat her alone. Then take me into the dream, Chen Zhao said. Chen Zhao actually wasn't that confident, because most of his power was in his body. He didn't know how much of his power he could use in the dream. Norma, bring me in too, Enrich said. As a father, he couldn't just stand by and watch. I just learned how to bring people into the dream. It's already very difficult for me to do it alone. I can't do it with 2 people, Norma said. Enric's eyes sparkled. He really wanted to say that he would replace Chen Zhao and enter his daughter's dream. But he couldn't bring himself to say it. Norma only brought Chen Zhao in because she wasn't confident. No matter how he looked at it, Chen Zhao was definitely more suitable than him to enter his daughter's dream and save Ceylon. Alright then. Enrich finally nodded. What do I need to do? Nothing, Norma said. Just sit down. Don't resist my magic later. Chen Zhao and Norma sat side by side on the chair beside the bed. Norma's magic was already activated. Chen Zhao could feel Norma's magic around him. Chen Zhao suddenly thought of the first time his spirit left his body. At that time, he'd been knocked to the ground by Old Turtle's punch. But compared to Old Turtle's brutal methods, Chen Zhao was much gentler. Norma was much gentler. If Chen Zhao resisted, Norma wouldn't be able to pull his consciousness into the dream at all. Norma's magic could make people enter a dream or dream themselves. It seemed like Norma's magic couldn't be defended against. In fact, with Chen Zhao's senses, Norma's magic couldn't escape Chen Zhao's senses at all. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt someone tug at his body with great force. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself standing on a wasteland. The sky was gray and hazy, just like the wastelands in movies. There was no sun or moon, no mountains, no plants, and no color. Was this the world of dreams? Where was Norma? Where did she go? Also, which direction should he go? Chen Zhao sat down where he was. According to the probability of events happening, things would definitely happen around him. Since he didn't know where to go, he might as well wait here. Chen Zhao pinched his face. He felt something. But when he tried to punch the ground, his power disappeared. Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. What he'd entered definitely wasn't his real body. But he still felt something. This feeling was different from the spirit leaving the body. At least, the spirit didn't have a physical body. But in the dream, it actually had a physical body. Chen Zhao couldn't help but think more. Taoists felt that there was actually a universe hidden in the human body. That was the sea of consciousness. Was the sea of consciousness the dream world? If the dream world and the real world were actually a complete world, a complete universe, then did it also have a complete set of rules? Chen Zhao suddenly thought of this question. If it was a universe with complete rules, then his power should be able to be used here too. Suddenly, Chen Zhao realized that his dark magma extended out from under his feet. The small world started spreading out too. At the same time, Chen Zhao's power started flowing in his body. Chen Zhao looked at his hands in shock. Could it really be done? Was it because he understood the rules, so he could take back his power? Or was it just because he thought about it? If he could have power just by thinking about it, then could he also have godlike power if he wanted it? Chen Zhao tried again, but there was no change this time. Was it because he didn't understand a stronger power? The realm was there, so his power was naturally there too. No matter which world he was in, he couldn't really have godlike power as he wished. So, whether it was Norma or the other Nightmare Lord, they also couldn't have more power than they originally had. Chen Zhao suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. It formed a dark cloud in the sky. The cloud covered a few square kilometers. Ha! Chen Zhao finally confirmed that this wasn't his real power. It was the power generated by his consciousness. Chapter 1585. This was because the demonic domain, Darkness Descends, had actually formed here. This was the Darkness Descends that Chen Zhao had never truly possessed. But in this dream world, Darkness Descends had actually appeared. So Chen Zhao was very sure that this wasn't his original power. It was the power that the dream world had given him. It was like a normal person entering the dream world. Then, this person would only have the power of a normal person. If he was an athlete, perhaps he would have more power, but it wouldn't exceed the limits of humans. But if he was a powerful being like Chen Zhao, first, he would know how to use his power. On the other hand, Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. The real world and the dream world could be imagined as two different countries, A and B. Chen Zhao had been a scientist in country A before going to country B. A scientist's knowledge wouldn't lose its value just because he went to another country. Of course, this analogy was also very similar to Chen Zhao's life experience. When Chen Zhao had first come to America, he hadn't brought anything other than his medical skills. He'd relied on his medical skills to gain a foothold. From this, it could be understood that the dream world was a world with complete rules. It wasn't empty. At least in terms of rules, the dream world and the real world had the same, or rather, close. However, this world didn't have spiritual qi. Chen Zhao frowned. This meant that he would use up as much power as he used. This made Chen Zhao even more careful. He had the same power as in the real world, or even more. But he couldn't last as long as in the real world. An idea suddenly popped up in Chen Zhao's mind. Everyone had a dream world, or rather, a sea of consciousness. The sea of consciousness was hidden in one's consciousness. This meant that his sea of consciousness had actually followed him here. So if his sea of consciousness had spiritual qi, could he use it to replenish his immortal power? Chen Zhao suddenly thought that perhaps the next step of his cultivation was to open his sea of consciousness. Just then, Chen Zhao felt movement in front of him. He immediately got up and went in that direction. He charged forward at full speed. But he didn't fly. Instead, he ran. Flying would greatly consume his immortal power. If he ran, it would consume less. But running on the ground wasn't much slower than flying in the sky. In the distance, Chen Zhao saw a giant. More accurately, it was a giant girl. That giant girl was Ceylon. No, it should be Ceylon's subconscious. She sat on the ground, hugging her legs and burying her head between them. Her body was as tall as a mountain. A two-headed serpent that was burning with flames was coiled around her left calf. One of the two-headed snake's head was biting Ceylon's calf, while the other head was fighting with a horse burning with green flames in midair. The horse burning with green flames was Norma's consciousness incarnation, Nightmare. The twin-headed snake that was burning with flames should also be a shapeshifter. Without thinking, Chen Zhao charged forward and grabbed the two-headed snake's tail. He directly pulled the two-headed snake down. Be it the two-headed snake or Norma, they were both shocked. When Norma saw Chen Zhao, she was confused but felt that it was only natural. However, the two-headed snake was completely dumbfounded. Although he was surprised by Norma's appearance, he wasn't surprised. After all, Norma was also a nightmare and could enter a person's deep consciousness. But Chen Zhao was clearly not a nightmare. Not only did he come in, but he also displayed unbelievable power. The two-headed snake was huge, but it was nothing compared to Chen Zhao's strength. However, the two-headed snake still managed to tear off a piece of flesh from Ceylon's thigh. Its body grew larger. Chen Zhao grabbed the two-headed snake's tail and smashed it on the ground like a whip. After going back and forth a few times, the two heads of the two-headed snake were dispirited. Norma, who had transformed into a shapeshifter, swooped down and bit the two-headed snake's abdomen, tearing off a piece of flesh. Norma was usually quiet and gentle in the association. However, after transforming into a nightmare, her fighting style became abnormally violent and savage. After Norma devoured a piece of the two-headed serpent's flesh. As time went by, Norma's body grew a little bigger, while the two-headed snake became a little smaller. The two-headed snake suddenly turned around and bit at Chen Zhao. "President, be careful. Don't let him bite you." Norma was in shapeshifter form, but her voice was still her original voice. Actually, even without Norma's reminder, Chen Zhao wouldn't let the two-headed snake bite him. After all, this wasn't his home ground. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't know what special abilities shapeshifters had here. Chen Zhao grabbed the two-headed snake's tail and spun it around a dozen times. Then he smashed it onto the ground. The two-headed snake tried to bite Chen Zhao a few times, but he shook it off. Chen Zhao wouldn't give it a chance to bite Big Quinn himself. Norma always took the opportunity to bite off a piece of the two-headed snake's flesh. Chen Zhao also had the urge to bite off a piece of the two-headed snake's flesh. Try it. The thought popped up in Chen Zhao's mind. Chen Zhao had always been a bold person. Of course, it could also be said that he didn't know his limits. Chen Zhao bit the two-headed snake's spine and tore off a piece of flesh. Next, Chen Zhao's body shook. Instantly, Chen Zhao saw a pair of eyes from the depths of his soul. The feeling was too special. It wasn't from the outside world, but from himself. Chen Zhao bit off another piece of the two-headed snake's flesh. But this time, the image that flashed by didn't appear again. Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed. The feeling was too special. But now wasn't the time to think about that. Chen Zhao had to get rid of the two-headed snake first. Just then, chains burning with green flames shot out of Norma's shapeshifter body. The chains were like a part of Norma's body. They nimbly wrapped around the two-headed snake. Chen Zhao had seen Norma use this move before. She'd used it against evil spirits and demons. The two-headed snake was tightly bound by Norma's chains. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't break free. It also couldn't resist Norma's pull. The chains started sinking into the two-headed snake's flesh. Every time the two-headed snake struggled, the chains would only bind it tighter. Chen Zhao didn't need to finish the last part. Norma could already do it. And she needed it more. The weaker the two-headed snake was, the stronger Norma was. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Godly Emperor mobile version. Chapter 1586. The battle ended. Under Chen Zhao and Norma's pincer attack, the two-headed snake was finally completely devoured by Norma. Norma shook and returned to her human form. President, why do you have real power in someone else's consciousness? Norma asked, confused. Can't you? Chen Zhao asked. I think I can do it, so I recovered my real power. It doesn't seem too hard in this consciousness. What? This is someone else's consciousness. How can you do it? Norma's face was filled with disbelief. Even us nightmares can't do it. Nightmares can't do it. Chen Zhao was stunned. He'd thought that it was just a small trick. Even if a beginner like him could do it. Nightmares, who often entered other people's dreams, should be able to do it. But hearing Norma's words, Chen Zhao couldn't help but be confused. Whatever, he couldn't understand. Let's not think about it. Chen Zhao shook his head. Norma, do you nightmares always fight in consciousness so monotonous? Actually, if two nightmares fight in someone else's consciousness, they basically see who can control the main consciousness first. Norma pointed at Ceylon's consciousness. However, a powerful shapeshifter can almost instantly devour this young lady's consciousness and control the entire world of consciousness. When that happens, he will be invincible here. However, the shapeshifter that attacked this young lady this time is only slightly stronger than me. Moreover, he has already become very weak after entering the human's world of consciousness through the crack. Hearing Norma's words, Chen Zhao fell into deep thought. His current power didn't come from this consciousness. But he did have this power. So where did it come from? Was it from his consciousness? In other words, his consciousness was transferring power to him. If he thought about it this way, in other words, he wasn't completely connected to his consciousness. Norma, can you take me into my own consciousness? I can't. I can only bring others into your consciousness, and you have to let go of your own accord, Norma said. I can't bring myself into my consciousness. Okay. Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed. Oh, after dealing with that nightmare, Angelite's daughter should be safe now, right? President, don't you think we need to talk to this girl? Norma pointed at Ceylon's main consciousness. From beginning to end, Ceylon had been hugging her legs, as if she had fallen asleep. Even the two-headed snake's attack did not have any effect on it. Enlighten her. Chen Zhao looked at Ceylon's consciousness and then at Norma. I'm not good at this at all. I'll leave it to you. Norma was also a little confused. She did not understand the ways of the world at all. Her EQ was not necessarily higher than that of an underage girl. She was originally blind, and the only people she interacted with since she was young were the mediocre people in her family and her uncle, Louis Clallam. Later, he became a member of the supernatural organization. How would she know how to enlighten others? Guild leader, I don't know what to do. It's fine, Chen Zhao said shamelessly. You can try. Persuading children was the most troublesome. Norma had no choice but to walk toward Ceylon's main consciousness. Hello. Ceylon. When the nurse entered the ward, she found two strangers in the ward. The nurse was puzzled. Were these two people the child's relatives? Why were they asleep here? Also, why was the patient's father standing at the side with an anxious expression? Just then, Chen Zhao and Norma, who were sitting on the chair, suddenly woke up. At the same time, Ceylon also opened her eyes on the bed. Dad. Ceylon made a soft sound. Engelit immediately rushed to the bed in surprise. Dad, where is this? Ceylon could not remember what had happened. Chen Zhao and Norma stood up and walked to the bed. Who are you? Are you my friends? They're my friends. Engelit looked at Chen Zhao and Norma, his eyes filled with gratitude. Chen Zhao and Norma also heaved a sigh of relief. Then the doctor came and examined Ceylon. Engelit sent Chen Zhao and Norma to the entrance of the hospital. Guild leader, Norma, thank you for your help. If not for you, I don't know what I would have done. Okay, Engelit, Chen Zhao said. Spend some time with your wife and child. Take care of things at home first. There was nothing big in the organization anyway, so Engelit had to go. So, Chen Zhao gave Engelit a long leave. As for the potion for your arm, I'll make it as soon as possible. Okay, guild leader. Then I won't send you and Norma off. That day, Chen Zhao and Norma flew back to Los Angeles. Chen Zhao cared a lot about what he sensed in his consciousness. Now, he was like a blind man crossing a river. He could only explore by himself. After his magic power turned into immortal power, he could only explore by himself. Although his power had increased by leaps and bounds, problems came with it. In the past, every time Chen Zhao improved, it was the growth of the system. There were precedents to follow, and Old Turtle could help too. But now, even Old Turtle could not help. In fact, Old Turtle was also in seclusion. Old Turtle said that he would enter the river map in 100 years to find him. That was a little more than a month in the real world. There were many things that Chen Zhao had to explore by himself. There was also another point about what the elves had said. They were naturally close to the elements. Natural elements were actually spiritual energy in the world. Like magic power or spiritual power, they were different names in the East and West. Elves did not have magic power. But they could use their closeness to the elements. Thus, they could directly control the power of the elements. They could achieve an effect similar to elemental magic or natural magic. From a Taoist perspective, this was the state of being one with the world. Of course, elves were definitely not that strong. At least, they were not stronger than spiritualists. Chen Zhao cared more about the principle of their closeness to the elements. Dad, how's Ceylon? Much better, Engelit said. I'll go to San Jose to see her, Ceylon said. He and Ceylon were very close and Ceylon was also very close to him. When he heard that Ceylon was in a coma and hospitalized, he was also very worried. Can you move? I'm fine, Ceylon said. Actually, he still hurt all over. After all, a few of his ribs had been broken. He could not recover so quickly. Please remember this book's domain name, 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1587. After the doctor's diagnosis, Ceylon was discharged. The doctor didn't understand why Ceylon had suddenly woken up. When Amy woke up and realized that Ceylon had recovered, her face was filled with disbelief. But then she thought of Chen Zhao, whom Engelit had found. She thought that Chen Zhao might have cured her daughter. That day, Ceylon also came with his injured body. But what annoyed Engelit was that Amy still hadn't forgiven him. But neither Engelit nor Amy quarreled in front of Ceylon. Amy, when are you going back to LA? Engelit asked. Go back yourself, Amy said indifferently. I haven't decided yet. How can you be like this? Engelit said angrily. I don't want to quarrel with you now. Amy's tone was still cold. Angelique was about to go crazy. Angelique didn't want to stay in San Jose, nor did he want to stay at his father-in-law's house. His father-in-law and mother-in-law all looked at him unkindly. They completely treated him like an outsider. No matter how he explained, his father-in-law and mother-in-law didn't believe him. After thinking for a long time, Angelique called Colin to his side. Colin, stay at your grandparents' house and try to persuade your mother to go back. Dad. Where are you going? Where can I go? I'm going to stay in a hotel for a few days. Your grandparents don't welcome me at all. Angelique was helpless too. He could only pin his hopes on his son. After all, his son was older and more reasonable. Dad, did you have an affair? I told you, I didn't, no. Angelique was about to lose control. Okay. Calm down. I'll persuade Mom to go home. Colin was worried that if he continued, his father would really go crazy. I'll stay here for a while, Angelique said. Call me anytime if anything happens. Got it. Angelique didn't return to LA, mainly because he was worried that if his daughter asked about him, he would be able to appear before her immediately. Without Angelique, the family was happy and harmonious. Amy's parents were very happy about the arrival of their grandson and granddaughter. They prepared a sumptuous dinner for Amy's family. No one mentioned Angelique, the loner. Whoosh, Colin woke up from his sleep. He realized that his whole body was covered in sweat, and his pajamas were soaked in water. Colin gasped for air and touched his chest. The pain seemed to have lessened a lot compared to during the day. Colin got up and went to the living room to get a glass of water. When he passed by Sealand's room, he suddenly heard noises coming from inside. Colin carefully pushed open Sealand's door. Suddenly, Colin saw someone standing in front of Sealand's bed. This person was definitely not anyone in the family. Hey! What are you doing? Corin shouted. The man's body didn't move, but his neck turned 360 degrees. Colin saw the twisted, bloody face. In that instant, all the hairs on Colin's body stood up. The figure charged towards Colin. Ah! Don't come over. Colin was so frightened that his hands and feet flailed wildly. A gust of cold wind blew past, but there was nothing. Just then, the lights in Grandpa, Grandma, and Amy's bedroom all lit up. The three of them came out of their respective bedrooms. Colin, what are you screaming about in the middle of the night? Colin opened his eyes again, and was stunned to see his mother and Grandpa and Grandma standing in front of him. And Ceylon also got up from the bed in a daze. Brother, what happened? Was it an illusion? Colin's heart was full of doubts. Are you bored, yelling in Sealand's room in the middle of the night? Amy scolded. Colin also didn't know how to explain. Go back to your room and sleep. How old are you already, still playing pranks? Colin could only go back to his room dejectedly. After turning off the lights, Colin still couldn't calm down. Was it really an illusion just now? Or did he really see something unclean? Colin couldn't be sure. Colin picked up the rubber ball on the table and threw it at the wall. The moment the rubber ball bounced back, Colin suddenly saw the rubber ball slow down in midair. It was like a slow-motion scene in a movie. Colin's face was filled with doubt. What was going on? Colin raised his hand and grabbed the rubber ball lightly. Then he threw it with more force. This time, the rubber ball slowed down even more. Colin's face was full of confusion. Colin tried again. The moment the rubber ball was thrown, Colin moved his feet and appeared on the other side of the rubber ball. Colin easily caught the rubber ball in his hand. At this time, Colin finally realized the changes in himself. He seemed to have become very fast, very, very fast. Colin looked out of the house in the dark night and threw the rubber ball outside. Then, Colin turned into a whirlwind and dashed out. When Colin found his body stirring, he could not move. He seemed to be able to escape the shackles of gravity. He could even run on roofs and run on walls. Colin easily ran a few hundred meters and caught the rubber ball easily. Colin's face was full of surprise. This change was too amazing. But running a few hundred meters like this was really tiring. Colin's stamina had always been good, and running a kilometer or two was definitely not a problem. But now, after just a few hundred meters, he actually felt very tired. Why did his body change like this? Colin couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Colin started to test his speed in front of his grandparents' house. He found that his speed was even faster than the world's top sprinters. But he couldn't last long, and every time he finished running, he would use up a lot of stamina. After running for 2 or 3 hours, Colin finally returned to the house. "Colin, why aren't you up? It's already noon." Amy, who couldn't bear it anymore, pulled the covers off Colin and pulled him out of bed. Colin's face was full of fatigue. He had used up too much stamina last night, so much so that his body was still extremely sore. "Mom, let me sleep a bit more. I'm so sleepy." "Who told you to play a prank in the middle of the night?" Amy scolded. "Get up, your grandparents prepared lunch for you. Go wash up now." Colin got up helplessly, looking like he had just woken up. He didn't feel energetic after washing up. His body was still sore. It didn't feel good at all. When he came to the table, he heard Ceylon call out softly, "Ouch!" Colin saw Ceylon's glass of juice fall from her hand. Colin's hands were sharp. He moved quickly and caught the glass gently. "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.